Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, you're
not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go. But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
What's going on?
What's
the
up?
problem? What were you saying right before the show started?
Oh, you caught that? Oh,
Yeah.
right. I was off mute. Yo, man, there's a fucking bus hanging off an overpass right now.
Where?
In New York.
Oh, wow. Wow. Where's that? Oh, wow. Jesus Christ. That's horrible. MTA bus hanging off overpass in NYC. Wow.
Dude, they need like Keanu Reeves there.
Wow. Yeah, that is some crazy stuff. Hope everybody's all right. Hope they get everybody out there safely.
It's one of those things you
folks,
see in an action movie and you're like, oh, well, that would never happen.
That would never happen, but it did.
Wow.
Folks, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you being in here tonight. 884 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 8:15 in the Rumble chat to start things off. We got Jake in the booth tonight. Hey, Jake. Everybody, round of applause for Jake in the chat. Thanks for being here, my friend. We have a lot to get to tonight. So in lieu of small talk, I'm going to do some boasting because obviously at the beginning of the year, we made our predictions. Well, end of last year, technically. We made our predictions for 2025. And what's that sound? I hear? Cha-ching. One comes through, put it on the board for me.
Keaton Weiss on the comeback trail.
Keaton Weiss on the board, 2025, one prediction coming true. Vivek Ramaswamy expected to depart DOGE. That's right. The Elon DOGE super team, the Elon Vivek super team you did disbanded.
Now, what was your exact prediction? It was just the DOGE would disband, right?
Yeah. Well, he's half a DOGE. I mean, they're a package deal.
No. I'm just saying. Yeah.
That was it. They were the branding. So DOGE still exists, but I mean, come on, you're losing one half of the banner DOGE team already. Vivek Ramaswamy, president-elect.
Well, yeah, I hear they're already talking to Ben Shapiro, though.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Vivek Ramaswamy, president-elect Donald Trump's choice to co-lead the Department of Government Efficiency with entrepreneur Elon Musk, is expected to soon step away from the task force, CBS News has learned. Ramaswamy intends to announce a campaign for Ohio governor as soon as the end of January, multiple sources confirmed to CBS News. Ramaswamy, 39, had no comment. People close to Musk have privately undercut Ramaswamy for weeks, frustrated with his lack of participation in the heavy lifting, according to sources familiar with the internal dynamics. There has been friction between the incoming rank-and-file DOGE staff and Ramaswamy, the sources said, and Ramaswamy has been subtly encouraged to exit. Vivek has worn out his welcome, one person close to Trump said. It's been like, 11 days? I mean, how long has this been? What has it been? A couple of months? And they haven't done anything yet because Trump's not in office yet, but he's worn out his welcome. Ramaswamy recently met with the Ohio sitting governor, Mike DeWine, about the state Senate seat left vacant by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. But on Friday, DeWine announced he is appointing his lieutenant governor to the post. So Vivek tried to get the governor's job. He tried to get the senator's job, the Senate seat that was left vacant by J.D. Vance, who's now vice president. But the governor snubbed him for that. So now he's going to run for governor instead. So I know what some of the chuds are going to say, and some of the haters and the losers are going to say, well, you can't really count that as disbanding DOGE because he's only leaving because he wants to run for governor. No. He tried to get the Senate seat before he ran for governor. Why do you think he's trying to get the Senate seat? Because he doesn't like the job. Mm-hmm. He's not mixing well with the DOGE people. What did I tell you? It's too many egos in the room. It's doomed to fail. It's not going to last the year. And while DOGE may, in name, last the year, I'm sorry. This is like saying, well, Lethal Weapon survived, but Danny Glover quit. No. It's a package deal. It's Mel Gibson. It's Danny Glover. That's Lethal Weapon. Vivek leaving DOGE. Point for me, one. Not even 3 weeks into the year.
It's not DOGE without a brown person? Is that what you mean?
It's not DOGE without Vivek Ramaswamy.
Because they could get Kevin O'Leary, I'm sure.
No, it's not about being a brown person. It's not DOGE without the founding members. Vivek and Elon, they were the dream team. They were the ones who were supposed to go in and get it done. Remember how excited all the chuds were about Vivek can't wait for Vivek and Elon to get in there and shake things up. It turns out Vivek wasn't doing anything. And they started getting on him for it. So he looked for another job in the Senate, got turned down for that. Now he's going to try running for governor. I wonder how the H-1B visa thing is going to go. Isn't that home to a town called Springfield, where they had a certain issue came up last year? I forget what it was. I think it had something to do with immigrants, though, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. We'll see how he does in his run. Good luck to him.
Cat's
And,
back on the menu, boys.
Exactly. DOGE had a good run to January 19th, 2025. Incidentally, one day before it was set to start doing anything.
Staff were apparently disconcerted by his cold reptilian stare and supercilious manners.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Wow. What a way to start. What a way to start the year in terms of my prediction list, and what a way to start the final nights of Joe Biden's presidency. Final night of Joe Biden's presidency. By the way, speaking of that, folks, if you want to go read my final words for Joe Biden, you could do so. Go to dudissidents.substack.com. I wrote my first article in a while today. I started writing it last night, put it out this afternoon. I wanted to get it done. You know, the obstacle to writing articles.
What about Snoop Dogg for Doge?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
MAGA.
Yeah, he's MAGA now. That's true.
Yeah.
They can get Snoop Dogg for Doge. An accident in history, the tragic era that was the Biden presidency. These are my final thoughts on the pre-presidency, the presidential campaign, the tenure, and the legacy of Joe Biden. It was nice to get to write an article again. The obstacle to writing articles is, unlike the shows where you just kind of have an idea what you want to say and you do them live, and so when you're live, you say your piece, and you never get it exactly the way you want it, but whatever. With writing, as you know, you can craft it exactly how you want it because it's only you and you're not live. So it's really difficult to be like, okay, it's ready now, because you're thinking, well, I could make this better if I give it an extra day or two. But the nice thing about thinking to write an article that would be obsolete in 2 days is you don't have the luxury of your own neurosis, right? It's not like I
didn't even know this was coming. What was this, in the middle of the night?
Yeah, just middle of the night into the morning. I thought, you know what? I should write something about the Biden legacy. And basically the thesis of the article is that, his presidency was an accident. That basically the central question of the 2024 campaign was which of the previous two campaign seasons, 2016 or 2020, was the trendsetter and which was the aberration. You know, if Kamala had won, 2016 would have been seen by history as the fluke. Because Trump won, now 2020 was the fluke. That was the sort of dream. That was the waking nightmare.
Right.
So anyway, it'll take you about 8 minutes to read if you'd like to read, and go subscribe to our Substack. It's free. That article's not paywalled, so go have at it and subscribe. It's also published to our locals. If you're on our locals, you would have gotten that as well. But hey, 1,500 strong in the YouTube chat now, 1,100 strong over on the Rumble chat. So thanks. Got a great crowd in here. Please smash that like button, and let's smash that subscribe button and smash that follow button. Already more than halfway to 666 likes at 345.
Damn, yo.
We can get there pretty quickly, I say, at this rate.
Yep.
You better watch out. You better not cry, says Tortoise Toad. Better not. I'll tell you what, Donald Trump is coming to town. Canada's going to go down. A man up in a canal. And there you go. Good one, Tortoise Toad. Appreciate that. That last line is a palindrome. The more you know. CBS cares. Stay in school. There you go. Thank you, Tortoise Toad. Appreciate that very much. Thanks for those Rumble rants. We got more lyrics. He sees you when you're sleeping. Thanks to the NSA. He knows if you've been bad. If so, he'll get cash to take you away. There you go. Look at this guy. Tortoise Toad tearing it down. Round of applause for Tortoise Toad.
Ripping it up, man. Ripping
it up. Good job. Absolutely. All right. So shall we get on to some of the more urgent, more serious news, I suppose?
Sure.
All right. Let's do it. All right, folks. So this has been kind of a difficult week to do this job, because news breaks at the beginning of the day and then it's undone by noon, and then it's redone by the afternoon, and then undone again by the evening.
Like both of our big stories today, the ceasefire and TikTok, have been like that.
Yeah, they've both been like that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To the point where, like, the opening of the last show, half of it was really not usable as a clip by the time we were done recording the freaking show. So
as I was working on the TikTok story, I had to change the whole end of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it has been difficult. It has been difficult, but hey, we can't complain. We can't complain. We have it relatively easy in this crazy world of ours. And now, of course, Israel and Hamas ceasefire deal takes effect as first 3 hostages are released. So the big news towards the end of last week was that, or towards the middle of last week, I should say, is that a ceasefire deal had been reached. And then, of course, it was delayed, and then it was agreed upon, and then delayed again a few hours this morning. I shouldn't say delayed a few hours this morning. Israel acted like they were going to delay it again, but ultimately did not. So Gaza now has its first day of peace in a very long time. Israel and Hamas ceasefire deal takes effect as first 3 hostages are released. 3 Israeli hostages were released Sunday as part of a long-awaited ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. They are the first of 33 that Hamas is expected to free during the first phase of the deal. A transfer to the Israel Defense Forces and Israel Security Authority was underway just after 5:30 p.m. local time, those agencies said in a joint announcement. Both IDF Special Forces and ISA forces will accompany the freed hostages back to Israeli territory, where they will undergo initial medical evaluations, according to the announcement. The commanders and soldiers of the IDF salute and embrace the released hostages as they make their way home to the state of Israel, they said. The ceasefire officially began earlier Sunday after a last-minute delay of almost 3 hours. Okay, so it was actually put off by 3 hours. I thought they had just talked of that, but they actually did put it off by a few hours. The fighting continued past the initially provision 8:30 a.m. local time, 1:30 a.m. Eastern deadline, as the Israeli military said Hamas had failed to provide the names of the first 3 hostages due to be released per the terms of the agreements. See, they just keep fighting until the last possible second. In Gaza, fighter jets and drones were reported to have disappeared from the skies as the deal took effect, and at least 191 aid trucks were said to have begun entering into Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing. The first phase of the ceasefire calls for Hamas to release 33 hostages over a 6-week period. They include women, children, and hostages over 50 years old, a draft viewed by CBS News said. The plan says 3 living female hostages will be returned on day 1, 4 hostages will be released on day 7, and the remaining 26 over the next 5 weeks. In a post on Truth Social, Trump welcomed the impending release of the hostages. Hostages starting to come out today. 3 wonderful young women will be first, he wrote on Sunday morning. In a rare meeting during the Jewish Sabbath, Israel's full cabinet voted to approve the deal. Of course, there's Trump's Truth Social post early this morning, 7:19 a.m., our time here on the East Coast. Under the negotiated deal, the ceasefire will be in 3 phases. The first phase of the ceasefire will last 42 days, and negotiations on the far more difficult second phase are meant to begin just over 2 weeks in. So you're looking at a 6-week ceasefire with about a month's worth of negotiation time to get to phase 2. After 6 weeks of the first phase, Israel's security cabinet will decide how to proceed. In total, Hamas would release 33 hostages during the first phase. They would start releasing hostages on the first day, initially returning 3 to Israel, according to the draft viewed by CBS News. On the 7th, they would release 4. Thereafter, Hamas would release 3 hostages every 7 days, starting with the living and then moving on to return the bodies of those who have died. During each exchange, Palestinian prisoners will be released by Israel after the hostages have arrived safely. Mr. Biden said Wednesday that Americans would be among the hostages released in the first phase of the agreement, but he did not specify any names or how soon they would be freed. In phase 1, Israel will release at least 1,700 Palestinian prisoners, which I consider to be hostages. Notice they call Israeli hostages, they call Palestinian hostages prisoners, including 1,167 Gaza residents who were not involved in the October 7, 2023 Hamas-led attack that sparked the war. All women and children under 19 from Gaza held by Israel will be freed during this phase. The remainder of the hostages in Gaza, including male Israeli soldiers, are to be released in a second phase that will be negotiated during the first. Hamas has said it will not release the remaining captives without a lasting ceasefire and a full Israeli withdrawal. Okay, so here is where, of course, and we've said this every step of the way when covering this, that when you're dealing with Israel, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So in advance of the ceasefire going into effect, so this was yesterday, Netanyahu announces that, hey, this is only temporary, and that he has an assurance from Trump that he will be allowed to continue fighting after this initial 6-week pause if the two parties cannot set terms for a successful phase 2 of the ceasefire. So here he is with a translator.
That Trump was completely committed to the release of the hostages. We spoke on Wednesday. He congratulated me on the agreement, and he emphasized, and rightly so, that the first stage is a temporary ceasefire. This is what he said, a temporary ceasefire. Towards the next stages of the agreement, we are holding on to some significant assets so that we can bring back all of the hostages, and in order to accomplish all the goals of the war. Both President Trump and President Biden have provided full backing to Israel's right to resume fighting, to resume combat, if Israel reaches the conclusion that the negotiations over the second stage are pointless. I truly appreciate that. I also appreciate the decision of President Trump to lift all the remaining restrictions on the providing of essential munitions and weapons to the state of Israel. If we need to resume combat, we will do so in new ways, and we will do so with tremendous force.
Still promising tremendous force. Haven't used enough force yet, have you? Have you? This gives you a little bit of an idea why he feels the need to say that. Not that he's a man of peace on his own, in his own right, but he had been protested by Israelis who wanted their hostages back and understood correctly that Netanyahu and the Likud party were prioritizing the annihilation of Gaza before the safety of their hostages who they wanted back. Well, Yanis Varoufakis tweeted this out. Netanyahu confesses he does not intend to stick to the ceasefire and claims he has backing of both Biden and Trump. The true intention is explained in this video: settle Gaza, settle Lebanon, greater Israel, no peace. So here is the faction of Israeli society that is extremely upset that there is going to be a 6-week pause in bloodshed.
Minister Netanyahu, you are the head. Indeed, you are the head. And it's up to you to change a terrible route that just started. You can stop it today, not because I don't give the names, because it is a lie, it's a danger. It leads to a horrible Saudi Arabia peace plan. No, 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 we say no to all this distorted route. We want Am Israel in Eretz Israel, in the great Eretz Israel. We will settle Gaza. We will settle Lebanon. We will settle the entire Promised Land.
So there you have it. You know, Russell, we just got an email recently, and to those who sent it, nothing but love to you. I mean, no, you said I know you guys are sensitive about this. We're not sensitive. It's fine. You can send us whatever email you want. But someone sent us an email criticizing our Israeli accents, saying that they weren't accurate. I don't know. Yours sounds pretty accurate to me after watching that video. It sounds like you have it just about nailed down. Just about nailed down.
I didn't see that one. Yeah, look, I will say, and every time I do it, I know I'm gonna get shit. I will say my, Irish, Scottish, British suck. But you know what? Monty Python had a very successful career doing for an American accent. How would you like your steak? So
right,
fuck you. If Monty Python could do an American accent that bad, I could get away with what I do. But the Israeli one, I stand behind that, man.
I think the Israeli one is pretty much there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've got it in my ear because I had an Israeli landlord.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it sounds pretty good to me. So obviously what we have with this ceasefire is the longest cessation of violence since the start of the war. We have good days in Gaza, which we're going to get to in our next segment. And I, bear with me, folks, but I will have to repeat this a couple times because we're going to clip these segments a couple different ways. But On October 7th, I never thought I would see another good day in Gaza ever again. I literally thought there would never be another good day in Gaza. I never thought I would see Palestinians in Gaza celebrate peace ever again. I did not think it was possible. I did not think Israel would stop until they were wiped out. And so I know that we have to be hyper vigilant when you're talking about the Israelis, when you're talking about the Netanyahu government. There is nothing they won't do. I've said this before. I stand by it 100%. This opens up an opportunity to get to phase 2. And the way we get there is how we got to phase 1. And I want to say this. I think this is an important point to make. A lot of us throughout the past year, towards the end of the year, especially as the campus protests were kind of shut down in the new fall 2024 semester, we kind of got depressed about the fact that despite the, valiant efforts of all these students and all these kids and all these people, whatever age, wherever they are all across the country, getting out in the streets for a ceasefire, however valiant, it seemed like those efforts had failed. But those efforts did not fail. Don't forget, the only reason Donald Trump leaned on Netanyahu for a ceasefire is because he considers this genocide a political liability. The only reason he considers it a political liability is because people got out and protested. If that did not happen, Trump would not feel any political need to get this 6-week pause, which hopefully leads to a phase 2 and a phase 3, and hopefully we don't see any continuing massacres of this kind related to this incarnation of a decades-long war. Obviously, the goal of a free Palestine remains the goal. The goal to boycott, divest from, and sanction Israel remains the goal. But, now you have an opportunity, a 6-week pause, to keep the pressure on and communicate to Donald Trump. And like I said before, this is in MAGA's hands as much as anybody else to insist that we follow through and get to phase 3 and that there is not another drop of blood spilled in Gaza in this phase of what is obviously just a very brutal chapter in history. So I'm not going to tell you we are free and clear. We are not. But this is a very crucial step 1 that would not have happened under President Kamala Harris.
No,
and it wouldn't have happened
absolutely not
if people had not demanded it.
Yes. On the one hand, yeah, Donald Trump he's not indoctrinated with the assumptions of Washington. And that is why there's, as you've described it, that empty chamber in the 6 chambers with him. Because every now and then he'll kick out the fence. He's not just going along with the assumptions. At the same time, he is very much in their pocket. So what this looks more like to me than Donald Trump trying to make a real peace, yeah, this is very messy. You need your hostages back. I need a political win coming in the door. Let's make a deal. How about it? Let's do a little ceasefire thing, and you can always go back to bombing them later. And we'll say, they launched a rocket. One of them probably will, and then you can just go back in.
It could absolutely happen, yeah.
I would suspect that's what's going to happen. If you see, because now they got blood in their teeth, and they've gone this far, and this is their greater Israel project. That's what it is. That's what it is. They want to drive these people out of there. In the end, Donald Trump is the same guy who danced like a monkey in front of the Israeli flag, talking about how much he did for the Adelsons and how they would reprimand him for not doing enough, and then he would do even more. And he bragged about it on a stage in front of an audience. So what? This guy's not on board with the Miriam Adelson Netanyahu Greater Israel Project? I think he's playing the angles. You put it very well. You said, people thought that Trump was a good businessman and a bad politician. It's the opposite. He's actually a pretty good politician. He's working the angles. Like, yeah, look, politically, I'm going to come out smelling like a rose if we get a ceasefire before I even take the oath of office. And then in a few months, it starts up again. We blame Hamas. Oh, look, I tried so hard. These people are savages. What can you do?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, that could definitely, I mean, yes, that obviously that thought crossed my mind that they can restart and just blame a breakdown in negotiations. Well, the Palestinians, couldn't make this assurance that, Hamas would completely disband and demilitarize, and that leaves us no choice. And Trump could then come out and say, well, I created a peace. I made a great deal that Kamala would have never made. I made a great deal, but it fell apart.
It was a
But it fell
deal.
apart, and it's not Israel's fault, and now they have to do what they have to do. Yeah, that's absolutely a strong possibility. But now you have at least a possibility and a window of time where you can, I would say, organize behind something else. I would say try and get something else. I would say hope for something else. There's a window. There's a respite. There's a coming up for air now. And, we're going to see in the next segment just how the people in Gaza are reacting to this. I never thought I would see scenes like that ever. I was very, very, very pessimistic. I said there's not going to be our first broadcast. I think it was October 9th, 2023. Since October 7th, I said there's not going to be a Gaza much longer. This is really a testament to the resilience of the Palestinian people too, that they made it this far and that they were able to survive this long. And now they get 6 weeks. And I would say we see what happens, but we can't just sit back and see what happens. You have to keep talking about this. You have to keep making noise about this, because this is our chance now. Now, you might think it's not a great chance. I don't think it's a great chance either. I share a lot of the skepticism that you share, that you have, Russ. But this is something. It's something. And with Kamala, we'd have had nothing. I mean, that's just a fact.
Sure.
That's just a fact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
and that's why we always leaned on the side of, hey, if you're going to vote within the duopoly, gun to our heads, so to speak, sure, Trump. But let's not have any illusions about Trump. I think you're seeing a lot of people right now. It's very easy when your political awakening has been defined by fighting the liberal class to be desperate to dig a heel in their face by embracing their so-called mortal enemies that aren't really their enemies at all, but the theater of it is that they're enemies. At the very least, we know they don't like Donald Trump, right? So there's a tendency, I think, for a lot of people whose political journey has gone through that path to anything that Trump does that they could somewhat plausibly cling to as a good thing. See, he should get the Nobel Prize. Calm down.
Well, obviously, I'm
Calm
not talking
Calm
about that.
down. No, I know you're not. But I think there is that temptation for people who were called Bernie bros, or, people who experienced much worse from that side, people with higher profiles, having been marginalized or attacked or had the Justice Department weaponized against them personally. There's a tendency to want to embrace the enemy of your enemy, right? But I think people should settle down, because I think in a few months, man, you might have to go delete some tweets and things if you say those things now.
Well, what I would say, I mean, look, to the point of this being a liability for Trump, which is why, look, I mean, I get to the extent I give credit for this, it's credit to the people who made noise about this, who refused to give in and vote for either duopoly candidate, because they're the ones who forced Trump's hand. Don't forget, Trump isn't doing this because he's a nice guy. He knows Pam Bondi is a sicko who's going to want to hand student protesters over to Crazy Faces FBI over there.
That's another thing with all
he
this. He
doesn't want it. Like he'd rather not deal with it. And the only reason, so if this is something so the credit goes to people who gave him a problem to have to solve, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Yes. But again, if you look at that bipartisan consensus, look, there's so much news we didn't even cover it. The fact that Pam Bondi is the one of his appointments that on a bipartisan basis are like, oh yeah, she's great, she's fine. I mean, that tells you how intact the establishment is and how sick their priorities are. Oh, RFK's the problem. And I'm not saying there are no problems with him, but I'd be much more concerned if he were at the Defense Department than if he were at the Department of Health. You know what? I don't agree with all of his views on health, but you know what? I agree with more of his views on health than whoever thought it was a good idea to let our food supply turn into the poison that it is.
Right.
Those are the people you should trust? Somebody who's going to keep this status quo going?
Right.
He's going to completely reform it. Overall, I think to the good. I think the ideas he has that I don't agree with are mostly so far out that they're not going to go anywhere anyway. But if he can capitalize on things like what they just did, banning the red dye. I mean, any other country you go to, they do not allow this shit in the food. That's why Americans look like fucking Oompa Loompas. Now, if he's going to go in there and do something about that, that's great. That's the one they have an issue with. Pam Bondi, who really does not seem to have any concept of constitutional protections whatsoever, who literally said, let's have the FBI question protesters. No, she's good.
Yeah. Obviously, the fact that she is skating through, the fact that Rubio is going to skate through. I mean, obviously, there's a bipartisan consensus around a certain foreign policy that ultimately I don't believe Trump will threaten. And I think part of, like, if we do get a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, that is going to come with a price. Obviously, Israel has a price for that. They're going to demand immunity from the ICC in the form of the United States probably aggressively sanctioning any of our allies who enforce the ICC ruling. They're also going to want Donald Trump to help them annex the West Bank, which they already said they were looking forward to last year. They said, we're going to annex large portions of the West Bank in 2025, and we're counting on Trump winning and helping us do that. They're, of course, going to cash in on that in exchange for an extended ceasefire, territorial ambitions in Syria, which we know they have. Don't think they're just going to leave it at that with Lebanon. And, of course, the big fight is Iran. And so, big picture, it looks like they are going to have their way. The question is, does Trump say, because the optics of this genocide are so bad, you have to just leave Gaza be? And that's the best you can hope for in the short term, in the very short term. Obviously, it is a lifelong mission of mine, and I think a lot of people have been radicalized into this over this past year, to get not just liberation for Palestine, but justice for Palestine. And that remains a long-term goal. I don't have high hopes for that in these next 4 years, if I'm being honest with you. Okay, so I'm not trying to lead people along. What I'm telling you is we have a chance to come up for air that I didn't think we were ever going to have. I thought this was going to go one way, the wrong way, forever, with no intermission whatsoever, and no possibility for any sort of changing, of course.
Well, and you're very right. If you look at the long-term project of Israel, it was always Greater Israel. That was always their project. And for 76 years, they've played this game where periodically they'll pretend to make peace, they'll pretend to have the ceasefire, and then they just wait for the next opportunity to kill more people and seize more land. Even if they decide that politically, because Trump is on their side and he's going to give them the West Bank, they have to give a little on Gaza, it's still part of their agenda. So really, we as people who are deeply invested in this issue, who are passionate, have become much more aware of it. We have got to maintain, as part of any movement, any left project, to end the apartheid state of Israel, to keep the pressure on diplomatically and economically. That is where we can really have an impact, I think. I've wanted for a long time to have a representative of BDS on the show. I know that their approach, really, most of these real boycott organizations tell you, don't play whack-a-mole with the 1,000 companies that are linked to Israel. Pick a couple and make an example of them. So I would like to talk to them. Which ones? There are certain ones that are very visible, like McDonald's, that people have boycotted. I've certainly boycotted. And that's probably much better for your health anyway. But yeah, no, I would like to find out, like, what companies should you really focus on? I know they had some success with financial services companies and banks divesting from Israel. That's what we have to continue. We have to put such economic pressure on Israel that it's a shithole that the kind of people who would live in Israel won't live in Israel. Over. They're not going to live in a third world shithole. These people have very high standards for themselves, if not for the people they're victimizing. They're not going to live in those conditions. You have to make Israel a bankrupt shithole that no one wants to live in.
Yeah. And, you know, the goal, like I said, of not only a free Palestine, but justice for Palestine, that remains the goal. But that is a long haul. That is a slog. You know, that's not going to happen in 4 years, certainly under a President Trump. But this is something more than we thought we would get. And it's at the very least an opportunity to end this genocide that's been going on nonstop for 15 months. Okay, we're going to move on to our next segment in just a moment, but let's take some super chats first. Fun Bad, thanks for the $5. So the ACP has not only been exposed as a cult, but also as a CIA operation. LOL. Shama was right to doubt them after all. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
What have I been hearing? I've seen chatter.
I've seen like chatter. Some tweets. I haven't looked into it at all.
I don't know what's going on there.
What that's about. I don't know. We'll have to ask some of our
contacts. We'll have to have one of our commies on.
Mark Pugliese, thanks for the $2. You guys crack me the fuck up. Thanks, Mark Pugliese. Radical leftist extremist. Trump saved Israel from itself. Zayshan Qureshi, thanks for the $9.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Funbad said Cuomo did a segment on aliens with a chicken egg. Interesting.
What?
I don't know. Putz the Mouse, thanks for the donation. I love you guys. Love you too, Putz the Mouse. Appreciate that. NGJO ampersand, thanks for the donation. Can you guys do a video on Anduril, the drone company military contractor? They have a multi-billion-dollar facility being built in Ohio. The CEO, Palmer Lucky, mentioned facing China by 2027. Interesting. All right, we'll look into that. That sounds like a good story. Daniel Sophia, thanks for the 10 Canadian dollars. Appreciate that very, very much. All right, folks. So we're going to move on here. I just want to remind you, folks, that if you have a creative project, a passion project, music, a book, a small business, something you're passionate about that you'd like to promote on the show,
a collection of erotica.
There you go. Yep. You can go fill out a contact form at dudissidents.com/sponsors and partner with us. We want to introduce you to our latest sponsor, A Bard and a Guitar. So Dogmatics is a musical retelling of the Jonah fable in a modern-day setting. This satire album, Dogmatics, follows a bard and a guitar, tasked by God to help the people of a city whose politics he can't stand. Featuring reinterpretations of All the Girls Go Crazy, No Irish Need Apply, and Love Me, I'm a Liberal. There you go. Find it on most music streaming platforms by searching for Dogmatics by A Bard and a Guitar. Or you can do what's really easy. Go to this hyperlink that Jake made up for us, dudissidents.com/bard. So it's a great political satirical album with contemporary takes on some classics. So go check it out. A Bard and a Guitar. You could type that in to YouTube. You could type that into Apple. But the easiest way is to just use this link that we had made up just for the Bard and the Guitar. So dudissidents.com/bard and support our dissident artists who help us support them by supporting us. It's a great circle of love here. dudissidents.com/bard. All righty. Beautiful. Okay, let's take a couple Rumble rants. Tortoise Toad. Russell's running a little bit hot tonight. I can barely see the screen from the heat coming off it. I reached down between my legs and eased my recliner back Dabula. What is the melody of that? I don't know what the melody of that was. I don't know what melody was I supposed to sing that Tortoise the Toad, but thank you for
what song is that?
What song is that? Hillary Hinton, Loretta Fuddy, the Hawaii official who confirmed Obama's Hawaii birth certificate, died on Wednesday, 12/11/13, when the Cessna she was flying in crashed shortly after takeoff, which is definitely a coincidence. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. Had not heard that. News Nation, says Eric Rousseau, showed a video of a white egg-shaped alien craft. It's Mork from Ork. Nanu Nanu. Yeah, you're second person to tell us about that. Why haven't we seen that? That's weird. Kenman, heartening to know that Norm Finkelstein and Deborah Winger have become friends. They also do movie nights together. Apparently, Norm likes 1940s detective films. Oh, really? We just see that. Thank you, Kenman G. Kenman G, if Vivek Ramaswamy spent more time on math and less time at the mall and watching Boy Meets World, he'd still be part of DOGE. That's right. That's right. Thank you very much for that.
Best audience. We have the best
audience. Absolutely.
We have an audience of potential comedy writers.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are a funny lot. Oh, here we go.
Really, look, man. This is how we move theater into the modern world. We should just have like a big session of workshopping with our audience.
With the audience, yeah, there you
go. Just
like
workshop dialogue and concepts with the audience, write them down, and then bring them into a studio.
Yeah, just a giant brainstorm. That's not a bad
brainstorm.
idea.
That is not a bad idea.
Hey, we're at 778 likes. And we're at 2,200 in the YouTube chat. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here. All right, so this was one of the segments that I had prepped for Thursday morning show that I did not get to do. It was a segment deferred, but not a segment deleted. So I wanted to show you this because this is a pretty inspiring piece of video here from Suppressed News. Listen to this legend. We will rebuild Gaza and it will become even more beautiful than before, says a resilient Palestinian woman following the announcement of a ceasefire deal. Israel will never break them. So this was on the evening of the first ceasefire announcement, which was then delayed. But we can now show it to you since we actually have a ceasefire in place.
وحنبني وحنعمر هترجع غزة أحلى من قبل. في طفلة بنت شهيد، في أختها، في ختيار، في شاب، كلنا حنعمرها وهترجع أحلى من قبل. غزة فينا، إحنا اللي صبرنا وإحنا اللي صبرنا. ولا إنجازات لأي حدا ولا لأي قيادة ولا لأي كبير ولا أي دولة. الإنجاز هنا. هذا الإنجاز أنا وهي ونفتخر إنه إحنا اللي أنجزنا، إنه صبرنا. يعطيك العافية.
So that's a pretty great video there. And obviously, a couple days later, Palestinians in Gaza celebrate Israel-Hamas ceasefire. There was, of course, a montage that was released of photos from the first ceasefire deal, which was then obviously delayed. But this is the more recent of the two that were put out. Celebrations have erupted across Gaza after a ceasefire in the war-ravaged territory came into effect on Sunday morning. The ceasefire was announced more than 2 hours later than scheduled due to a dispute between Israel and Hamas over naming the captives to be freed under the deal. Earlier on Sunday, Hamas named 3 captives it plans to release later in the day. Israel's cabinet approved the ceasefire on Saturday in a rare session during the Jewish Sabbath, more than 2 days after mediators Qatar, Egypt, and the United States announced the deal. So here are some great photos from the day. Palestinians celebrate the ceasefire in Nuseirat refugee camp. These are some of the healthcare workers, the civil defense workers celebrating, which we'll see a video of in a little bit. Again, just scenes that I never thought we would see. I never thought we would see scenes like this ever again. Ever. Literally not one day. I thought they would have not one day of peace. But here they are. Palestinians celebrate in Deir al-Balah. There you have it. Survivors. Here are the families now coming back home. These are the displaced families with, look at that, blankets, materials, supplies stacked to the roof inside the car. You can see there, no windshield in the car. The cardboard box coming out where the windshield would be. Internally displaced Palestinians on their way to Rafah as they leave areas near Khan Yunis where they had taken refuge. Dozens of displaced Palestinians walk along a road in the As-Saftwawi area of Jabalia as they leave areas near Gaza City. Here is a return to the north. We have some videos here. Joy beyond measure. Celebrations in Gaza as long-awaited ceasefire begins. Celebrations have erupted across the Gaza Strip after a much-awaited ceasefire came into effect following 15 months of war that turned much of the coastal Palestinian enclave to rubble. The ceasefire came into effect at 11:15 a.m. local time on Sunday after Hamas handed over a list of 3 female captives to be released as part of the deal to Israel through mediators. "My joy is beyond measure," said Gaza resident Salah. "From the moment they announced the ceasefire, I quickly packed all my things because I am ready to go to Gaza City. My children are extremely happy to go and see our families, relatives, and our lands," she told Al Jazeera. "Here we are always scared and worried, but back home we will be very happy and joy will come back to our lives." A young Palestinian man said, "Everyone is happy, particularly the children. Hopefully the Israelis will not violate it," the ceasefire, "in the next few days," he told Al Jazeera. He said all he wanted to do now was complete his education. There have been loads of dreams destroyed during this genocide. You know, Max Blumenthal spoke about his intervention against Anthony Blinken. I watched the Gray Zone stream later that day. And, he spoke about friends of his, Rifat al-Arir, the great academic and poet in Gaza who was killed. He knew him personally. They had DM'd just days before he died. He talks about how, Israel took out, on purpose, obviously, many of Gaza's, most enlightened leaders, intellectuals, academics, professors, musicians, artists. And so this guy says now all he wants to do is complete his education because loads of dreams have been destroyed. That's 100% true. Gaza's health workers and rescuers were also seen celebrating in the streets. Videos shared online and verified by Al Jazeera showed several civil defense teams chanting and raising victory signs. Let's take a look at this video right here.
الحمد الله أكبر ولله الحمد هذه لحظات السعادة التي جاءت بعد مجازر ومجاعر للعرس ثيابا أعلى يا صوت الجماهير غني أوضوع النبا وعرسك يا شعب ونصرة لشريعتك أرواحنا من أجل الله عرقنا من أجل الله وحط السيف قبال السيف حط السيف قبال السيف واحنا رجال محمد ضيف واحنا رجال محمد ضيف الحمد لله وبفضل الله تعالى اليوم الله عز وجل أكرمنا بنصر كبير.
So those are the healthcare workers getting a hero's welcome. These people seen, literal hell on earth every single day for over a year straight. Al Jazeera's Hani Wood, reporting from outside Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, said there were no violations reported since the ceasefire took effect. There have been no more bombs, no more fighter jets, and no more drones. The only sound of gunfire we hear is from celebrations in the streets. Gunshots and fireworks have been frequent, he said. Al Jazeera's Mahmoud reported that in the hospital courtyard where he was reporting from, Palestinian families had started to dismantle their tents and head back to their homes they were forced to evacuate due to relentless Israeli bombings. What we are now witnessing here is families excitedly gathering their belongings, whatever they managed to collect during their stay at the hospital. There is so much excitement on their faces as they leave the hospital gates, he added. Keep in mind, 92% of residential buildings have been destroyed.
Right. This is what I keep thinking. What are they returning to?
What are they returning to?
There are no standing structures.
Yeah. Yep. Other displaced people have reported returning home only to find the scale of destruction makes it hard to even put up a temporary shelter. Mahmoud Anwar Abu Salem, a displaced Palestinian from northern Gaza, has spoken to Al Jazeera following his return to his area after spending 3 months in Gaza City's Shati refugee camp. The house, the whole thing, was reduced to rubble. 50 members of my family will live in the streets, he said, explaining that before the war, the 5-floor building housed many of his relatives. Quote, schools have also been destroyed. There is no life at all, Abu Salem said. Even the mosque was targeted and destroyed. It is even difficult to set up a tent here. Nara Saka, a displaced Palestinian woman from Gaza City, says she feels an overwhelming mixture of emotions. We haven't been able to feel completely relieved, not only because of how stressful these 15 months have been, but also due to the ceasefire itself. The fact that it has been fragmented rather than announced and implemented all at once, Saka told Al Jazeera in Rafah. Saka said the fact she and other Palestinians from Gaza City are still not allowed to return to their homes in the first phase of the ceasefire is causing the population even more psychological stress. We are constantly living through this uncertainty and anxiety that even this relief is not completely full. So once again, you just have to say it's important to include that, and for those on the live stream, forgive me for repeating myself, but by no means are we out of the woods yet. But these scenes are scenes we never thought we would see. At least I never thought I would see. Here's a very powerful one as well. Gaza celebrates its victory on the streets, expressing gratitude to everyone who contributed to securing the ceasefire deal and honoring the sacrifices made by martyrs, wounded, and prisoners. So here she is. Okay. So just two quick things there. One, when she's talking about martyrs, she's talking about all who have died. All have died. Right. That's what they call it. They say, my son was martyred. They're talking about everybody who died over these past 15 months. And, of course, the second thing, she talks about an enduring ceasefire. And so, you know, she screams of victory and an enduring truce. You know, whatever the war objectives of Israel are, and it seems as though they will not fulfill those objectives if big if these ceasefire phases are allowed to roll out 1, 2, and 3 as they are supposed to, which we obviously hope and pray that they do. But when she speaks of victory, she speaks of peace. She speaks of a lasting ceasefire, because victory for Gaza to a lot of these people meant survival. And they survived. Right. And, you know, people ask me a lot, you know, hey, you know, you're a father of 3. How could you bring kids into a world like that? Well, this segment is my answer to you. This is my answer to you. If these people can hold out hope and raise families and just never give up, no matter how fucking bleak and hopeless and terrifying and painful it is to keep going, they kept going. They survived. They did not give up, and that is an inspiration, and it is a victory for them. It's a victory for them, and this day was a victory for them that, again, I hate to repeat myself over and over again, I never thought I'd see.
Well, and also Israel, at least at this moment in time, has strategically lost if you consider degrading or eliminating Hamas to be the goal of the war. Hamas, according to what we know, has replaced all the fighters that it lost. It's replaced all the leadership, and it remains the political entity in Gaza.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so when you look at the well, this is why, obviously, we don't know that the terms of the ceasefire will hold, because obviously Netanyahu has been emphatic the entire time that he would not stand for that. He wants a fully demilitarized Gaza. He wants Hamas entirely dismantled. And if they don't get that, it remains an open question whether or not they will agree to phase 2 and 3 of this ceasefire. Right now, their position is no, they will not. 8 months ago, their position was that they wouldn't agree to this ceasefire.
Right.
So it depends now on whether or not Donald Trump views this as the political liability that he does now.
Right.
And that's why I say people have to keep talking about this. You know, we have to keep making as much noise as possible about this, because this is an opportunity now that we have that was hard fought and won. That's the other thing. I just have to emphasize this again. This is an opportunity won by people who protested this. This would not have happened unless Donald Trump thought it was a political liability for him to have this going on his watch.
Also, you look at the Jeffrey Sachs video he tweeted out, things he said in unguarded moments over the years. He knows. He knows what's going on here. He knows. I am the sense that I get from Donald Trump is he would be very happy to just be able to make a deal with all the Middle Eastern leaders, shake hands, have mutual. He thinks like a real estate guy. You do business with people, you like them, you don't like them. It's irrelevant, right? You're doing business. I think that is the kind of foreign policy he'd like to have. That's why he went to North Korea. Like, hey, this is not productive, right? Why do the mob families always end up making peace? War is bad for business, right? To Donald Trump, this is all bad for business. He knows Israel stirs up this shitstorm. He's caught between the money he's getting from Miriam Adelson and others, and I think his gut instinct would be to force these guys to the table to make a peace so that everyone could just do business together.
Yes, I agree.
So that's where what he does long term is unpredictable, because you never know with him. He can always turn around and say, yeah, you know, what Israel has done to those people, it's terrible. It's a tragedy.
Right. Exactly. And so, you know, this was just a moment of joy that I didn't see coming, and that, you know, these people, they earned. I mean, it's just the resiliency of these people. Is just incredible.
Man, it makes me think of one of the main themes of the Dune series is the idea that the predator strengthens the prey, so that eventually the prey becomes stronger than the predator. When you prey on people the way that Israel has preyed on these people for 76 years at the least, you create some very tough, resilient people.
Yeah. And just like I said, I mean, you're talking about women and children who have just been through unspeakable horrors every day for the past 15 months. And now they get to go home to at least where their home once stood. And as you can see, they are struggling to build any kind of life there. There's no schools, there's no mosques, there's no nothing, but they have each other and they have a will to live. They obviously have a will to live that is just incredible. And it's just really an inspiring thing to see. Yep. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see, where are we at? Vulture, there's no government like no government. Due dissidence is the truth. Check it out. Check out my joint. Rise. Yes, absolutely. Vulture. This is DJ Vulture. DJ Vulture, who is one of our dissident sponsors. Absolutely. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate that. Or DJ. Mr. Vulture. I don't know if you want me to say your real name on the show. I know your name, though. Furrows Queen, thanks for the donation. Imagine how disappointed I was to find out that you weren't doing your normal Sunday show at midnight. Then imagine my stupidity when I realized it was Saturday and I'd waited up to the wrong day. Idiot. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yes, we were still on our break there. Vulture says, fuck the Israeli government, free Palestine. Thank you, Vulture. Appreciate that very much. Which Shigo? Israeli murderers are called commandos. Arab commandos are called terrorists. Yes, George Carlin. Yep, I remember that one. I remember that line. Absolutely. Eric Rousseau, Biden and Harris moving out day. That's right. It is moving out day. Thank you very much. Let's see. Furrows Queen, I've been thinking if anyone is a fan of MASH, there's an episode called Ceasefire where it turns out to be wrong, and Keaton has reminded me of Trapper. Half a day of hope was a respite from sadness. Yeah, well, I think we're getting more than so far, it's more than half a day. The Democrats continue to show their ass. Sadly, their base never notices. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, Sparky. What's up, Sparky? Says the last thing your boy Netanyahu wanted was the hostages released. He saw them as a license for Israel's aggression and expansion. Well, that's the thing. They're getting 33 back, and then they'll see, what the next move is. That is very much an open question, no doubt. Cad Moose, thanks for the $5. There's no doubt Milikowski will test Trump's spine. Trump watched him push Biden around for a year. Could Trump's ego be the Hail Mary for Palestine? Well, maybe. Yeah, I mean, this is part of why we said he's a wild card. Maybe. Because you never know. I mean, look, it's going to come with a price. This is what I say. It's going to come with a price. If Gaza is spared, it'll come with a very big price. Miriam Adelson doesn't write $100 million checks for nothing. Right? They're going to want them to back their expansion into the West Bank. They're going to want them to back them in Syria. They're going to want them to back them probably against Lebanon and against, Iran. That's the big one. So look, it's not, I keep trying to insist that I'm not trying to, paint an overly rosy picture here. But this is better than I thought would happen, if I'm being honest. Philosophical thirst. I'm going to need you guys to wear a MAGA hat all episode if Trump pulls it off. There you go. Thank you.
I am probably tomorrow. I feel like I should really wear my steak Pliskin. I don't give a fuck about your president shirt.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of like the shirt for tomorrow.
So tomorrow, we're going to be broadcasting exclusively on Rumble for the inauguration. Now, Donald Trump moved his inauguration indoors. And because of that, we did not see a point in sending Russell down there if there's not going to be an inauguration to cover outside. So he's going to be here. And we will, obviously the money that we raise is going to go towards our other projects this year. We are not pocketing that, of course. We do have our friend
No, the
Don
Special
DeBar.
Projects Fund money only goes in that account.
That only goes there. Yes, exactly. Our friend Don DeBar is going to be in D.C., though. And he was very, very gracious in offering to be an on-the-ground correspondent once he found out that Russ wasn't going to make it down. So we will have some on-the-ground reporting from there that will be exclusive to our Rumble stream. And so what are we going to start, 11 o'clock? I think that's the plan. 11 a.m.
Yeah.
We're going to watch Snoop Dogg at 11:30.
Yeah, we're gonna Mystery Science Theater, the pre-show.
Is Snoop Dogg going tomorrow or is he playing tonight? Is that I don't know what's going on, but we got, what do we got? We got 11:30 pre-show.
There's a few people who are getting shit from the usual libs, or Carrie Underwood, I guess, is
We'll be crushing Coors Lights at 11:30 a.m. getting ready for the inauguration, which is at noon. You got to swear in at noon, in or around noon. That's in the Constitution. That's the rules. So it's got to be midday. But we're going to start an hour early, 11 a.m. tomorrow, exclusively on Rumble. So make sure, if you're not subscribed to our Rumble channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that follow button. We have a Q&A coming up on Rumble later tonight, so you guys will head over there and hit that follow button while you're over there so that you don't miss the show tomorrow.
Is Kid Rock playing the inauguration?
Hey, what you doing tomorrow? You know what you're doing tomorrow, Kamala? You're not getting inaugurated tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a good day to seethe in rage while you watch Donald Trump get inaugurated tomorrow.
On the day you would have gotten inaugurated, which is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes. Eric Maines. Vivek now gets to play Slumdog Millionaire. I like that. It's a good one. Running for Ohio office, 30 seconds. Chaiwala. Are Ohio union workers still too lazy and stupid to compete with HB1s? Yeah, this is what I mean. H1Bs. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, how much is that going to follow him there? Could be an uphill battle. We'll see. It depends on how strongly Trump backs him. Ultimately, I think that's going to make the difference. Sparky, thanks for the $5. This is, Trump says he's Israel's best friend. Best friends stop their friend's self-destructive behavior. We'll see how long it lasts. Jax Page, thanks, Jax. How are you? It's Panama by Van Halen. By the way, hearts in the chat for Jax. She's been in the hospital the last few days with a virus of some kind. I hope you're feeling better, Jax, and best wishes on that recovery. That sounds like a drag, but you seem to be doing okay, so that's good to see. Sparky, thanks for the $5. If Kamala won, Israel would have continued self-destructive behavior until it was gone or started nuclear war. Would have been very risky. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much. Okay, folks, so this is our final ceasefire-related segment of the night, and this is one that I really was excited to do. And so I'm glad we are able to do this because, like I said, though the skies are not clear over Gaza yet, we just showed you in our previous segment the Palestinian people finally getting a chance to celebrate some kind of peace. And anybody who's paying attention knows that it was Donald Trump who forced this peace to happen. And so this was total vindication for our friends at Abandon Harris. So the Abandon Harris campaign issued the following tweet following the announcement of the initial ceasefire, which ended up being the deal that they ultimately put into place. Abandon Harris campaign welcomes ceasefire but demands accountability for Gaza genocide. This development confirms what many of us have known all along. The primary obstacle to ending the genocide in Gaza was the Biden-Harris administration's unwavering support for Israel's brutal campaign. And so we'll read their statement. It's not long. It's worth reading. The Abandon Harris campaign welcomes the news of the recent ceasefire agreement with great relief and joy, while recognizing that our work is far from over. Reports last Saturday from Israel's Ynet News and Keshet 12 revealed that Steve Witkoff arrived in Tel Aviv with direct orders from President-elect Donald Trump to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu into accepting a ceasefire deal. This development confirms what many of us have known all along. The primary obstacle to ending the genocide in Gaza was the Biden-Harris administration's unwavering support for Israel's brutal campaign. For over a year, the Muslim American community, rallying first under Abandon Biden and later Abandon Harris, was vilified and dismissed by Democrats and their supporters for drawing a clear red line: genocide. We placed the blame squarely where it belonged, on the President of the United States and his Vice President for funding, backing, and providing political cover for Israel as it carried out relentless human rights violations in Gaza. Today, while we celebrate the ceasefire just as we celebrated the defeat of the Harris-Walz ticket last November, we also mourn the reality that our power has been limited to delivering electoral consequences rather than holding the Biden-Harris administration legally accountable for violating both U.S. and international laws. Their unwavering support for Israel's genocide in Gaza prolonged unimaginable suffering, support that, had it not been so ironclad, could have ended this atrocity much sooner. As for the future of our movement, our mission remains the same as it was when we launched in November 2023, to continue organizing and mobilizing our community for moral, ethical, and principled political engagement, one not bound by loyalty to any party or politician. What comes next cannot and will not be a repetition of the failed philosophy, strategy, and approach that led us to this point. A point where a segment of this country's voters willingly dismissed and minimized a genocide funded by our tax dollars, said Hudhaifa Ahmad, spokesperson for the Abandon Harris campaign. We have a responsibility to ensure our elected officials are held accountable. We cannot continue to live as passive bystanders. We must be active participants in our democracy. To our community, allies, and supporters, thank you for your help and support, even if it was just a word of encouragement. We are committed to carrying this momentum forward toward a future rooted in hope and conviction, not fear and uncertainty. And so Abandon Harris went on tweeting throughout those next couple days, and they cited this, one of the most egregious and insidious lies of the campaign, which is AOC at the Democratic National Convention insisting that Kamala Harris had been, of course, working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire.
Is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
Imagine that.
You're going to get your mind right, and I mean right.
She got her mind right.
Imagine going on stage and having to say that. Wow. And then, of course, there's Mehdi Hassan. Some of us say...
They also made her say J.B. Pritzker is just big-boned.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Mehdi Hassan tweets out, some of us said a year ago that the U.S. president has the power to impose a deal and a ceasefire on Netanyahu and Israel. If President-elect Trump can do it, Biden could have done it for the past year. Shame on him and Blinken and the rest of them. And Abandon Harris comes back with, Mehdi, all we remember from you a year ago was you constantly saying that anyone who didn't vote for the Saban administration actively responsible for the genocide was, at best, stupid, and at worst, maliciously exploitative. Have some shame. So I just want to give a little bit of a citation for that. Here's just a brief piece of Mehdi Hassan shaming the very third-party voters that the Abandon Harris movement eventually partnered with. They supported Jill Stein. We supported Jill Stein because of them, quite frankly. So here is what Mehdi had to say about those third-party voters in the run-up to the vote.
Whether or not you vote for Harris, that's up to you.
Oh, sure.
It isn't an easy choice. But it is a choice. Let's not lie to ourselves about this. It isn't happening in a vacuum. And the alternative to Kamala Harris come Inauguration Day 2025 will be Donald Trump, not Jill Stein. The same Donald Trump who Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir want as president. They don't want Harris.
Well, they certainly got shafted in the short term, at least. Had the Democrats won the 2024 election...
Ben-Gvir resigned now.
He resigned. That's right. Yep. He rage quit, as they say.
He rage quit, yes.
We'll probably do a segment on that tomorrow when we're waiting for Snoop Dogg or whoever's going on first.
Who cares? He was quiet quitting for years anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's coming in late.
He was phoning it in, doing just the bare minimum.
He wouldn't refill the paper in the printer. He'd print all the paper and leave it empty.
I would go make coffee, leave the grounds in the basket.
Yeah. Abandon Harris tweets, had the Democrats won the 2024 election, the genocide would have raged on until every last Palestinian in Gaza was wiped out. But the Muslim American community rose up, and despite relentless pressure and smear campaigns for abandoning the Democrats, we stood our ground and held the line. We crushed the Democratic Party in every single swing state, delivering a humiliating 1.5% defeat to the Harris-Walz ticket. Genocide was not just one issue among many. It was the defining issue of the 2024 election. And because of our unwavering stand, they lost. Our efforts worked. This is a damning indictment of the Democratic Party, its voters, its supporters, and its shameless mouthpieces, especially the cowardly few within our own Muslim community who bent over backward to hand Kamala Harris our votes. You failed. Your betrayal is burned into history, and we will never forget it. That is fire. From
uncommitted.
Yeah.
Uncommitted. Well, I think they're talking about you, yo.
They're talking about uncommitted. They're talking about Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they're right. And this is whatever happens from here on out. This is total vindication for them. Yep. Total vindication for them. Because we know, Kamala said over and over again, there would be no policy change. And it really is.
Emphatically, even weapons. She promised not to curtail weapons to Israel. Promised. Ran on that.
Yep. It is truly the banality of evil when you're talking about people like Kamala and Biden and Blinken and Sullivan. they are servants to a global order. It doesn't even matter if they are dictated orders by a person. They see themselves as functionaries of an unchangeable system, and their place within that system involves perpetuating that system. With Trump, there's a human element. There's a human element. Now, is he a great guy? No. So it's not a great human element. There are better human elements I'd rather have in there than Donald Trump, but you're at least there is the human element. There's a person in there who thinks, okay, what's going on here? What is actually in my interest, our interest, which is that's a loaded statement. That means a lot of different things. But there's a human being actually deciding, okay, what good does this order do us in this moment? And should we try to force some change? And that allows for some flexibility within the system. Is it likely to lead to a good end? No, I can't say that. I wish I could. I really do. Obviously.
Yeah, me too.
But
let's
it's something.
It would be, some people who are, Trump fans who watch us, they think we're being reticent when we're critical of Trump. I would love to have the power of a political party to persuade to support my policies. That is so much easier than any other path. I would love it if Donald Trump wound up being everything people want him to be. Love it.
Of course.
Love it. I'd become a Republican. I honestly would. Sure. And I would keep the same principles, but I would try to work within this party to persuade people in the party to go with those principles. But I don't see that happening. Sorry. But it would be great if it did.
Yeah. No, I think so too. I totally think that. But it's great to see them take a victory lap because they earned it. The Democrats, as we know, and you know this if you are a member of one of these communities whose support they feel entitled to. See, as a couple of white boys, Russell and I don't get this the exact same way because they assume the white men are going to vote for Trump anyway.
I'm
right?
an octoroon.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're black or if you're Arab or Muslim or if you're Latino and these Democrats feel entitled to your vote, yeah, they have a special vitriol for you if you turn your back on them. And the abandoned Harris people face that. They face that. The uncommitted people face that too. That's why I can't say that's why they caved. That feels like a Sunrise Movement type op from day one, to be honest. But you notice they were willing to endorse Kamala Harris. Right? It takes a tremendous amount of fortitude to be able to stand your ground as a community to whom the Democrats feel entitled to your support, to say, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of carrot and stick to work with. If you're a political person, they offer you a place in their network of jobs. Right. You're gonna get a job if you're really talented. You can work your way up. Before you know it, you're in Schumer's office, right? You have a comms job in Schumer's office. You go the other way. Welcome to a life of poverty, ostracization, and your social media getting turned off for no apparent reason and without explanation or warning.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So. They faced a lot of the latter, but they stuck to their guns. They stuck to their principles. They found a great partner in Shyam Sawant, who sort of united them with the Jill Stein campaign.
Yep.
And what he said there at the end, which is, that they were the difference maker. You can go state by state and litigate that if you'd like, but we just did a segment last time we were on the air that post-election surveys show that actually amongst Biden voters who abstained from voting for Kamala, Gaza was the number one reason. And at least 3 of the 7 swing states, more than 30% of Harris defectors did so, citing Gaza as the first reason. So they did make a big impact, and they made an even bigger impact than was obvious at first. Because Kamala lost it was such a rout on election night. It was so one-sided that we felt like, oh, maybe they were just one of many things. And they were one of a few things. But they actually, amongst the Democrat defectors, were the most influential of any sort of protest group. Yeah.
Right.
So good for
them. And that is important to point out, because as activists, they always want to demoralize you and make you feel you're not having an impact. You had an impact. Look, Bernie is not our favorite person at this point. I think most people in the space agree on that.
Right.
But I will say, from the Bernie campaign, for me personally, in my political journey, it was the Bernie campaign that really gave me the idea of collective action, that just because you're not solving it yourself doesn't mean that your action is insignificant. Just because you're one of a million people trying to do something, that doesn't mean it's pointless. It can feel pointless. Right? When you're just that. He definitely, being involved in that campaign, definitely had that impact on me. I hadn't really thought about that in that way before. And that certainly applies here, man. Each of us in our own way, with our own contribution, we brought down this administration. Yeah, there were other things, but we helped.
We helped. And now you have some tangible reward for that. If it lasts only 6 weeks, obviously, it's going to look like pretty small potatoes in 6 weeks if the slaughter restarts. But we've won something, and we have an opportunity to win more. And it always feels hopeless when you're doing it, because it's a David versus Goliath fight.
Sure.
It's an uphill
battle.
Always
Always is.
It always is.
Especially with the way the Bernie thing ended. A lot of people did the easy thing. They went back to being libs. A lot of people did. You got a lot of those people who are like, oh yeah, I was a Bernie guy from way back. You know?
Of course. Yeah, it's funny you say that. Because every couple of weeks I'll go on Facebook just to see what's going on, and a lot of the people who I got to know in the Bernie 2020 campaign were all in for Kamala, on the Trump derangement syndrome. They just fell back to being libs. It's really quite pathetic, and that's what creates kind of a lonely place in the post-duopoly lane. But depending on how things go, it's not going to be lonely for long, hopefully.
I agree.
Landrew, thanks for the $100. Let's have a sound drop for Landrew. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you, my friend. Well, yeah, that new mic really does pick up the cowbell well. It may only last a day, but may there be the new Palestine, a country for all people of peace, kindness, and love. Free Palestine. Palestine is free. I pray to the universe. That's beautiful. Thank you, Landrew, very much. Appreciate that. Where's Landrew? There it is.
Landrew is dead.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. YepX says, hey, DD, please attempt to reach out to Alexander from the Marx Engels Lenin Institute to talk politics. Is he CIA or no? He's not with the CIA.
He's not with the CIA.
I don't want to say. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know that they're. I've been hearing things. People are saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of very smart people are saying that.
Smart people. I don't know. I can't confirm nor deny that. I consider him to be an expert on communism and a wealth of knowledge in general. Thank you, YepX. Dino M. Thanks for the $5. I told those fucks down at the league office 1,000 times I don't roll on Shabbos. Yes, that's right. What's this day of rest shit? What's this bullshit? That movie is so perfect. That movie is just like the brilliance of that scene in The Big Lebowski when Jesus comes in. What's this? It takes place at like the height of the tension of the rest of the plot, where you like forget that there's the bowling tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden he comes in, and in this guy's world, the biggest thing going on is the bowling tournament, and you're just fucking bailed on the big game, and he's fucking fuming mad. Yeah, just brilliant writing in that movie, and brilliant acting. I mean, all the performances of that are irreplaceable. That was like, it had the Seinfeld magic of the casting chemistry. Like if you recast any of those parts, the dude, Walter, Donnie, or the Jesus, it wouldn't have worked. Just a miracle of a movie. Posmo, we should really do that.
Now it's ruined, because honestly, I was putting together the sound drop that we'll deploy later from that movie, and I was like, You know, man, I can't look at him doing that character now without thinking of him doing that cringe white dudes for Harris fucking.
Yeah,
video.
he's a schmuck. He's a
It
schmucky
like
guy.
it kind of kills it because now you watch it, you think of that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I can't hate too much.
He hurt his own legacy. He really
did. You're right. You're right. I mean, fair is fair. But he's not
especially
like one of the super
especially
cringe
because
ones.
he did that character in the telecom.
In the telecom. Yeah. But he's not like one of the super. He's not like a Mark Hamill. He's not like out there every day. You know, he's a schmucky guy. He's a
okay,
schmucky lip.
Mark Hamill at this point looks more like Jabba the Hutt than Luke Skywalker. So it doesn't ruin the movie for you because it just doesn't
because
even
he's
seem
not appearing
like
in
the same
character.
person.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He looks nothing like that kid who did those movies.
That's true. Bridges still looks like the dude. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Posmo says, someone explain to me why Trump burned all his political capital just to secretly tell Bibi he can invade again and then be blamed 100% for a new massacre. Sounds like something Bibi would leak. It's possible that Bibi's trying to gain an upper hand in later negotiations, trying to save face. Like, that's all possible. I'm not going to... I don't really want... I mean, it's speculation. You could totally be right. I mean, I think that's totally valid. I just... my instinct is always, as I said, when we covered this on the Jimmy Show for the first time when news broke, with Israel, the other shoe could drop at any second. You just don't know. It's not a done deal unless it's a done deal. And this first 6 weeks is now a done deal. And so we got to take that and go from there. That's all you can do. Alex Dalib, thank you for the 1999. Biden torched Dem Party, signed TikTok ban and funded genocide, stayed in with dementia, ran on Medicare for all veto, criticized Congress insider trading. GOP does it better than Pelosi, and criticized big tech on his way out. Thank you for that, Alex. Appreciate that very much.
A soundtrack.
In the year 2525.
Wonderful. Okay, let's get some here. What do we got here? Posmo. Most of those men, I bet, have barely gone outside in 15 months, certainly not to stand in the sun and celebrate. That would be a death sentence. YepX. Israel is probably not going to honor the ceasefire. All Israel wants is land and power and will do so at any cost, even if that means continuing this genocide and isolating themselves on the world stage. Like I said, it's always a possibility. Always a possibility. Absolutely. Okay, why don't we do an ad read here for Rumble Premium, since we got a great crowd in here tonight, and we're going to be exclusively on Rumble tomorrow. So this sponsorship is from Rumble, one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on issues like COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure, from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not censor, however. They held the line for free speech, and they're attacked daily for giving shows like us a platform to talk to audiences like you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech, while Rumble is fighting to preserve it. Rumble won't survive, though, with brand advertisers alone because they don't get many of them. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium, which is the ad-free version of the Rumble platform. So join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are, of course, just happy if you watch us on the platform. All righty. Beautiful. Okay, so, hey, folks, tickets are on sale for Russell's Irish Mob Walking Tour. That's right. Jake, can you go to that URL and share the screen, please, if you can?
Yeah. The last one was so much fun. It went really well. It was great. Second night was like an all-star tour. We had Jimmy. We had Garland Nixon on that tour. Did Jose come on that tour? I think he did, right? Mad Crab was handling the camera. It was a family affair. It was very cool. So now I'm doing, by popular demand, my Irish mob tour of Hell's Kitchen. As far as I know, I'm the only one who's ever done that, which is funny because other people have done Irish mob tours, but they do it in the old Five Points, which has been completely razed. There's not a single building from the Irish mob era still standing. What's cool about doing this in Hell's Kitchen is the Irish mob was in Hell's Kitchen into the 80s. So every murder scene I talk about, every gang headquarters, every bar that was a mob joint, they're all still there. Every location I talk about is still there. So you'll be literally going where the bodies were buried on this tour.
There you go. DoDissidents.com/tour. Alrighty. Perfect. You can go there to get tickets if you're in the New York City area, or you will be in for St. Patrick's Day. Alrighty. Well, that brings us to our first installment of Russell's India travelogues.
With a little editorial input from Russia, I will admit. All right, so it only took me 2 years. In fact, it's almost the 2-year anniversary since I went to India. I think I left on February 9th, 2023. So this is finally, I got around to it. I'm going to try to drop these every couple of weeks. It's kind of a personal memoir, travel memoir, my reflections on India. I'll say this. I'm not trying to give the impression that I was in India for a month as a tourist and now I'm an expert and I really know India. In fact, one of the insights I got being there is you could live there for a lifetime. If you're not from there, you wouldn't understand all of the cultural complexities. My guide, something he said to me that really stayed with me. He said every 20 miles, he could see the cultural and ethnic differences. And to the outsider, that's completely invisible. Like, you're not seeing that at all. So this is intended very much as, hey, man, you're like a Westerner that's never been in a country like that, and I never had been. These were my impressions and also my personal journey and relationship to that situation.
All right, so this is about 8 minutes, part one of a continuing series. We'll mute up and full screen this, and we'll be back. Oops, pardon me. But in the meantime, please enjoy.
Flying into India, if you've never been anywhere that wasn't even a little Greco-Roman, is like hovering over an alien planet. The buildings look like crushed cereal boxes dropped into a dusty pile, irregular rectangles standing upright, sideways, and sometimes laying flat on their backs. As the ground comes into focus, there's a rare sense of accomplishment and perhaps a little guilt. Here I am in India, you think, and that in and of itself is quite something. But you can't help imagining yourself in a red jacket wearing a pith helmet. It's much worse for the Brits. This particular land has never been among our possessions, but still you're thinking of the old Monty Python sketch. A tiger in Africa?
A tiger in Africa? A tiger in Africa? Well, it's probably escaped from a zoo.
The airport in New Delhi is clean and modern, and of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? For a people that prides itself on a certain native toughness and can-do spirit, we are oddly terrified of every place else. New Yorkers of the rest of America, Americans of New York, and both of the rest of the world. More than one person helpfully urged me not to die when I told them where I was going. But when you get there, it's just an airport where you go through customs and get in a cab, just like any place else. On the way, you will notice the smell, and it's a smell that pervades all of Rajasthan, although I found later that it is absent in the old Portuguese colony of Goa, not because of the long-departed Portuguese, but because of the absence of free-roaming cows and dogs. The Catholic converts the Portuguese left behind do not revere the lower life forms in quite the same way, not seeing them as souls on their way to becoming human, or has humans fallen from grace in trying to find their way back with good dogginess? Mixed with the sour smell of dried urine and baked feces is a thick stew of exhaust fumes. Indian cities are trucks and scooters and motorcycles and cars and rickshaws and bicycles and pedestrians going 24 hours a day in a moment-to-moment fight for primacy and purchase without any apparent organizing principle beyond the laws of nature. From above, it wouldn't look very much different from cells in a petri dish, meeting, scattering, colliding, according to the most basic principles of biological impulse and Newtonian physics. If there's a code of written law governing it all, it's either ignored or invisible to the outsider. It feels a little like a demonstration of faith. Faith that there is a merciful deity whose guiding hand ensures that it will all come out all right. And for the most part it does, which you have to admit borders on the miraculous and may indeed be potent evidence of the divine. Not knowing the country, the language, or the culture, and having a head full of all the worst stories I've ever heard about robbery, rape, murder, immolation, and snakes, I booked with a tour group for the Rajasthan leg of the trip, planning to strike out for Goa on my own once I had become acclimated. On the first night, we went out for an introductory dinner with our guide Bhupesh, a native Indian descended from Asian peoples who had migrated centuries ago into the eastern province of Bengal. He had grown up poor, but he was well educated at a private school only because his father took a job as a janitor there, specifically so that he and his brother could attend for free. This was why he spoke fluent English, which, as I discovered, is not common among Indians in spite of the long British occupation. Only the upper classes and the occasional street hustler, some of them children, speak English. The Indians we meet in America are very often upper class back home, even as they devote themselves to menial work or difficult businesses in the West. If you take the time to talk to your Pakistani or Indian Uber driver, you'll find they're very often professionals with advanced degrees who've chosen to drive a cab so that their children can live well. After dinner, I wandered the streets where rival packs of stray dogs were barking at each other in what seemed more like a nightly ritual than a turf war. They'd run back and forth through the alleys for a while before settling in for a nap on the narrow strip of separation from the street proper that passed for a sidewalk. I felt like I'd broken out of prison, and I almost expected the hard drop of a heavy hand on my shoulder come to drag me back to my native land, where the strays are properly vicious and terrified. Up before the sunrise, we stacked our bags in the hotel lobby, then trudged our way to the train station. This was the first time I experienced the dual consciousness that would plague me throughout the trip. It was particularly acute at these moments when we were in transit and on the move. Who are you now? Are you the cool adventurer living out of a backpack, open and curious about other cultures? Or are you the ugly Westerner, come to pay the people your forebears impoverished for the privilege of gawking at what remains? It's a question I never resolved, and one that bothered me enough to torture the tour group with it in passive-aggressive ways until I had an epiphany in a place called Abaneri. Good a place as any, I guess, but we'll get to that. The main hall of the station was dominated by an enormous mural of Gandhi, whose image pervades the country with his statue presiding over town squares from one end to the other, and figurines in his likeness sold in every tourist trap. There were hundreds of Indians camped out on the floors waiting for their train. If you tried that at Grand Central, it would only take about 5 minutes before some functionary came along to say, "I'm sorry, but you can't do that here." Home of the free, my ass. The network of rail that crisscrosses India was built by the British, or the Raj as the colonial government is usually known, and the trains themselves go back to the 40s. I asked Bhupesh if people were going to ride on top as I had seen in old Merchant Ivory movies. No, he said, they don't do that anymore. The group was made up entirely of subjects of the crown, except for a cherub-cheeked Dutch couple that you'd peg immediately as the first victims if you saw them in a horror movie about Western tourists in Asia. The rest were from the mother country and its satellites, England, Australia, New Zealand. Everywhere they went, they namaste'd and pressed their hands together and bowed. Not having Hollywood to make their apologies for them, they have to do it themselves. Then again, if we had left enough of our misnamed Indians alive and with intact cultures to constitute a distinct and independent nation state, I'm sure there'd be a bunch of Americans running around the hotels and gift shops, solemnly holding their hands up and saying "how" between sessions in the sweat lodge. The train arrived looking like a museum exhibit that had been pressed into service in a pinch. It moved through the station like a ghost ship, out of its time but still sailing. When it came to a stop, Bhupesh hustled us quickly to our shared berth, where I made my first acquaintance with the Asian preference for sleeping surfaces that aren't much softer than a hard floor. I was assigned a top bunk, which I was terrified of climbing in and out of when the train was moving until I got the hang of it. As we pulled out of the station, we all settled down on the bottom for the 16-hour ride to the desert in the ancient sandcastle town of Jaisalmer.
All right, that's the end of part one. Well,
all right. Yep, that is it. I'm hoping to have part 2 out in a couple of weeks. Should be like 8 parts of about that length, I think. But it was quite a journey. I've been going through the photos now to do this. I've just got some amazing images. So, yeah, I mean, it'll basically be in that spirit. Going forward, there will be a lot more in situ footage where I narrated it going. This is all like the first 24 hours I was there, where you land, you go to the hotel, you're on the train, and you're on your way to the other side of the country. So I didn't have as much of that, but I will in future installments.
All right. Excellent. Beautiful. All righty. Well, what do we got? What's next on our list here? Oh, let's shout out our patrons, our paid Substackers, and our paid Locals members. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that very much. Folks, if you like what we do here, you can help us do more of it by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can join our Substack at DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our Locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble now, which 1,700 of you are, you can join our Locals by clicking that bright red join button right underneath the video player. Everyone else, the link is on the screen right now. That's DoDissidents.locals.com. Perks of membership include your name up on the show scroll, call-in access to all of our weekly Q&As, which take place every Sunday night after the main show over on Rumble. Tonight is Sunday. That means we are on tonight for the Q&A following the main program. You also get bonus live streams, movie club exclusive live streams, all of which are interactive call-in streams. And you also get, of course, live stream access to our pre-recorded full-length interviews, which should be starting up next week, as we just had to take a little bit of a break from the interviews from this very, very busy first couple weeks of the year between our show and, of course, holding it down as best we could on the Jimmy Dore show. Jimmy had an epic stream last Friday. He had Dr. Drew, he had Max Blumenthal, and Danny Haifong on the same stream. That is really packing it in. So yeah, that was an epic show. So he came back in full force, but we were, of course, happy to hold down the fort there as best we could while he was gone. And good to see L.A., obviously has a ways to go, but they seem to be functioning more or less. You see a lot of the TV shows are still taping out of there. Like I noticed Bill Maher still's there. They're going. It's not shut down entirely, so that is good to see. But if you would like to support the show, it really helps us out tremendously to censor-proof the operation. DoDissidents.locals.com, or like I said, if you're on Rumble, super easy to join. Just click that bright red join button underneath the screen. You are the backbone of the show. Your support is what keeps us afloat. So thank you very much for your membership. All right, we got Code MD. Please check out the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. They need 413,488 valid petition signatures by July 2nd, 2025, to place the amendment on the 2025 November ballot. All right, interesting. I will take a look at that. Thank you for that very much. Gu81, French outlet Carrefour, who gave free groceries, went bankrupt in Jordan and Oman due to BDS. Interesting. Eric Rousseau, one side celebrates ceasefire while one is angry and protesting it. Tell again who are the good guys. Yeah, exactly. Well, I made that point on the Jimmy Dore show, you know.
Yep.
You see Israelis talking about how there are no innocent Palestinians. So then why are they out there supporting peace, and why are you guys out there with blood in your eyes screaming about how this is a horrible thing, that you're taking a 6-week pause to try and negotiate further terms? So absolutely. Good point, Eric Rousseau. Let's see. Did Joseph Goebbels popularize certain ideals of the mass culture? Does Steven Spielberg attempt to do the same thing? Crispin Glover's What Is It essay, which is a must-read. Thank you, Killer Hitton. Appreciate that.
Crispin Glover, really?
Crispin Glover, yeah. That guy's quite the guy. Did you see the...
I should have cut that into... I almost did. Like, my David Lynch tribute on the intermission was a lot of different clips. But if I had picked one, it probably would have been the Cousin Dell story in Wild at Heart. That was one of my favorite David. I didn't even cut that in.
Yeah, we got a David Lynch intermission tonight between the main show and the Rumble show. So make sure you stay put for that. Sparky, I hope against hope, there'll soon be a Berlin airlift level logistics operation to get humanitarian and other supplies to Gaza. Well, part of this truce, the deal is 600 trucks per day. So that's the other part of it, is that a lot more aid is supposed to be able to get in. Sparky63, fuck Israel. Thank you, Sparky. A simple one from Sparky. Let's hope the Palestinian diaspora with BRICS investment will return and rebuild a better than ever Gaza if things head in the right direction. Thank you, Sparky, very much. Appreciate that. All right. Alex Daslieb thinks Secret Service begged for mercy once they learned the tech oligarchs were attending, moved it inside. Okay, so this is the other funny thing. Okay, so I know it's going to be rough out there, but tomorrow's forecast in D.C. is 25 and sunny. Sounds to me like January. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, whereas, we had to move it inside.
Well, Trump's a pussy. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't understand that. I'll tell you the other thing I don't understand. All right, and this is a slight digression. Okay, I'm usually not a one for conspiracy theories about like the NFL rigging football games, but when you look at some of the calls that Mahomes got last night, you combine that with the fact that Taylor Swift goes to all these games. Okay, so it's a tried and true tradition in sports. Great players get great calls. You know, great quarterbacks get the calls from the refs. Great pitchers get the calls from the umpires. In basketball, the refs are notoriously, lenient on the great players. The added element of Taylor Swift dating one of the players on the Kansas City Chiefs, I just have to think that might be influencing the refs, because the NFL has an incentive to keep the Chiefs in the playoffs through the Super Bowl. Because think of all the fans who watch who are not natural football fans. Like Swifties are not naturally NFL fans. Right. So think of all the added audience they get from this huge superstar with this massive cultish following who are going to watch all the games that the Chiefs are in. If the Chiefs are out, they lose that Swiftie audience. I don't know. It's bizarre. Anybody who watched the game last night knows what I'm talking about. I didn't even watch the game. I saw David Portnoy's tweets about some of the calls, and it was just unbelievable. Anyway, I won't bore you with that. I just have to get that off my chest, because I know some people think that, the games are rigged. That game looked a little rigged to me, I have to say. Very unfair. But now you know who the underdog is to root for? Russell's team, the Buffalo Bills, and my team up here, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, because the Lions are out too now. That's a shame.
I'm telling you, I'm like right on the verge of missing the wave.
Of missing what wave?
Fuck it. I can't remember which one it was, Redfin or Trulia. They announced Buffalo is the hottest real estate market for the year. I'm like, shh.
Yeah.
It's gonna be ruined by the time I get up there.
Buffalo Bills are now America's team. 24-19. They're up.
Yeah, they win the Super Bowl. That's just going to bring more people up there.
I know that's going to bring more.
I'm trying to get in there while it's empty and cheap.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you could be in for a hard time.
Right, you could build a theater there for the price of a pastrami sandwich at Katz's.
Yeah, right. Gobnik Otaku, thanks for the £5. So after all, it was not premature for me to raise that beer for peace. Keaton, I'd pour you a pint if I could. As it stands, I'll just raise another. All right, you enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Raise responsibly. Khabib and those imams in Michigan deserves props, says Posmo. Absolutely. Salamander Fry says, hey, you guys are all right. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So now we go to the second major big story of the day. This is kind of a show about a very small handful of things, but we have a lot to say about all of it. So TikTok. Yeah. What's going on with TikTok?
All right. Well, let's look at this. Is a story really in 3 acts that will make 3 clips. So let's take a look at how it started. How did all of this talk about banning TikTok get started? Where did it come from? Oh, that was Donald. Who was president August 6, 2020? Was that? That was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was before they stole it.
Yeah, it was before they stole the election. So this is Donald Trump's executive order on addressing the threat posed by TikTok. So just a couple of excerpts. I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, find that additional steps must be taken to deal with the national emergency with respect to the information and communications technology and services supply chain. Well, he didn't write that shit. Specifically, the spread in the United States of mobile applications developed and owned by companies in the People's Republic of China, and in parentheses for some reason, China. Maybe he did write this. That seems like a Trump move. Yeah. Continues to threaten the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States. At this time, action must be taken to address the threat posed by one mobile application in particular, TikTok. TikTok, a video sharing mobile application owned by the Chinese company ByteDance Limited, has reportedly been downloaded over 175 million times in the United States and over 1 billion times globally. TikTok automatically captures vast swaths of information from its users, including internet and other network activity information, such as location data and browsing and search histories. This data collection threatens to allow the Chinese Communist Party access to Americans' personal and proprietary information, potentially allowing China to track the locations of federal employees and contractors, build dossiers of personal information for blackmail, and conduct corporate espionage. TikTok also reportedly censors content that the Chinese Communist Party deems politically sensitive, such as content concerning protests in Hong Kong and China's treatment of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities. This mobile application may also be used for disinformation campaigns that benefit the Chinese Communist Party, such as when TikTok videos spread debunked conspiracy theories about the origins of the 2019 novel coronavirus. Okay.
You mean ones that they almost all now agree are true?
I'm surprised this got into that coming from Trump, because he was very big on the lab leak, Kung Flu, right?
Yeah.
So I'm surprised.
I mean, he was interested in the broader anti-China angle. I don't know how much he litigated the lab versus the wet market.
Sure.
But yeah, why would they get into that?
Okay, so from there, in March 2024, Trump had already been out of office for many years, but by that time, a bipartisan consensus had built around getting rid of TikTok. So here's our friend Michael Tracy. This is back on March 13th, calling out the bipartisanship with which this passed. This is called the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Adam Schiff, Jamie Raskin joined Mike Johnson, Jim Jordan. I'm actually a little surprised at Jim Jordan. He's the one who investigated the IRS for going to Matt Taibbi's house. But, not pro-speech here.
Well, a lot of these people have the same hang-up. There's an Israel exception for free speech. There's also a China exception amongst a lot of these fucking Republicans. Like, a lot of them really have a hard-on for China.
They do. Elise Stefanik, Lauren Boebert, in voting to ban millions of Americans from TikTok and other, quote, foreign adversary-controlled, unquote, apps. Who says bipartisanship is not alive and well in our nation? And if you look at this, 197 Republicans, but the Democrats are not far behind. 155 Democrats. So pretty bipartisan bill there. Now, I'm going to surprise some of you and not some of you. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, look, she says some crazy shit. She does. But she's kind of branded as being dumb. And let me tell you, it's like the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You guys ain't no crazier than the average asshole walking down the street. You know, man, she's definitely not any dumber than the average congressperson. And I got to say, if you watch this video, you're forced to conclude whatever you think about some of her political views. She's actually a lot smarter than a lot of her compatriots because she got this right from the beginning. A lot of what people are saying about this now, she was saying about this then, March 13th, when they were debating this bill.
I rise today as the only member of Congress that has ever been banned by social media. On January 2nd of 2022, Twitter banned me, banned my personal account on which I was campaigning for Congress, raising money, and using my free speech to inform the voters in my district they can vote for me. This was not by a company owned by China. This was by American-owned Twitter. This came on the heels of our own United States government working with big tech and working with social media companies to censor and ban Americans' free speech. I believe that this bill can cause future problems. It's opening Pandora's box, and I'm opposed to this bill. Most Americans don't trust the United States government because of our experience dealing with it. Never forget that the United States government also was the one that provided the Russia hoax to Americans. It also worked to ban Americans' free speech. It also has worked in so many ways to illegally, warrantless spy on Americans through FISA. If we wanted to be serious about stopping a foreign adversary, if we wanted to be serious about stopping China, we would stop China from buying our U.S. farmland. We would raise up our American energy independence. We would also stop the Green New Deal and not rely on China, who owns and operates 85% of the battery market worldwide. There are dangers that lie ahead in this. This is really about controlling Americans' data. And if we cared about Americans' data, then we would stop the sale of Americans' data universally, not just with China. There's some further issues. This is a Pandora's box.
All right, so we're going to see a little bit from AOC, who, like the profile and courage she is, basically is saying what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying about the issues with data privacy, what she was saying when it was difficult to say it back in March. So do we see a bipartisan bill from AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene in our future? We shall see. But hey, right around that same time, somebody else took a brave stand, although in this case it was very different from the stand he had been taking when he started this whole conversation. Here's Donald Trump issuing a truth. If you get rid of TikTok, Facebook, and Zuckerschmuck will double their business. I don't want Facebook, who cheated in the last election, doing better. They are a true enemy of the people. And here's Trump in September talking about TikTok.
Of those that want to save TikTok in America, vote for Trump. The other side's closing it up. But I'm now a big star on TikTok. We even have TikTok Jack, and we're setting records. We're not doing anything with TikTok, but the other side's going to close it up. So if you like TikTok, go out and vote for Trump.
All right, so that's really strange, right? That's really strange. This is the man who issued an executive order that gave 45 days for TikTok to be closed down. It was only stopped because a federal judge said he was exceeding his authority. This is why Biden worked with Congress to do it, because a federal judge had found Trump could not do that by executive order. So then they created this bill. So, and then Trump's against it. So why is he against it? Well, this might be why. Trump's cozy relationship with billionaire mega donor Jeff Yass could be key in helping TikTok avoid a U.S. ban. Co-founder of investment company and trading firm Susquehanna International Group, Yass, has an estimated net worth just shy of $50 billion. Much of the Pennsylvania-based billionaire's wealth is tied up in none other than TikTok, as Forbes reports that Susquehanna's most valuable holding is ByteDance, TikTok's parent company. Susquehanna holds 15% stake in ByteDance, a source familiar with the investment told the New York Times, and Yass himself owns 7%. Yass started funneling money in the 2024 election early. At one point in March, he was the biggest donor to outside spending groups. He, alongside wife Janine Yass, were number 6 in top contributors to the election, contributing in total more than $96 million to Republican causes, per nonprofit tracker of campaign lobbying, Open Secret. The mega donor might be somewhat connected to Trump's invitation to conservative PAC Club for Growth's retreat in Breakers this past year, Bloomberg suggests in a recent article. In 2023, Trump wasn't invited to said event. Yass, who has donated more than $60 million to Club for Growth since 2016, found an ally in Trump. Not long after the event in Breakers, Trump publicly changed his stance on TikTok, Bloomberg notes. So you might say Jeff Yass is the Miriam Adelson of TikTok. He's
the Yass queen of TikTok.
He's the Yass queen of TikTok. We know Trump's ego. He got him an invite to an exclusive event that he hadn't been invited to before. And, Trump, people have asked Trump about their conversation. He says they didn't talk about TikTok. Take that for what it's worth. Now, his son, Barron, apparently told him to lean into TikTok. He has he had 41 million followers on TikTok. But that's after the fact. Yes, I'm sure he decided to lean into it and use it as a political tool. Trump is kind of a savant in that way, has pretty good instincts about social media. And I think his young son was able to tell, hey, listen, all the kids are on this. You got to be on this, sure. But what made him change his position? It looks like, very much like a lot of his other positions, his position here has been paid for.
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, he has really made an ally of a lot of these tech companies this year. This is why the campaign felt online to a fault, in my opinion, over the summer. I've said before, candidates who have mastered new media tend to do really well and become very influential, historic figures. FDR, radio, JFK, TV, Reagan again, TV. But JFK was really when TV became common in the household, right? It was this new thing. Wow, and now everybody's got a TV, and JFK looks great on it, right?
Well, in a lot of respects, Reagan was the one who followed what Kennedy did to its logical conclusion. You know what his contribution really is to politics? He dumbed down political rhetoric.
Right.
Up until Reagan, people still felt like in some way they had to echo the schools of rhetoric of a classical education and come up with, very elaborate conceits and ideas, themes and lofty concepts. Reagan is the one who started making pop culture references and just dumbing the whole thing down to a Hollywood screenplay level.
Exactly. And that played great in the entertainment mediums. Obama, used the internet in ways that it hadn't been used in campaigns past. Trump, first time around, social media, viral Twitter handle. This time, it was really indie media. This time, he really tapped into alternative media, which TikTok is kind of both. Yes, it's a social media app, but it's also an outlet for independent media that circumvents these old, dinosaur institutions, like the, legacy newspapers and legacy networks. And he made that really a part of his campaign. And so it's not a surprise that they warmed up to him and that he warmed up to them, but because it was a relationship that paid huge dividends this campaign season, to the point where you saw Trump just blowing it out of the water with young men. I mean, he
realized the podcasts are where the action is, particularly for his base.
There was a great clip on CNN on election night, which was just fucking hilarious. I mean, so bizarre to see. There was like a CNN contributor going around interviewing college kids. I just spoke to one young man who voted for Donald Trump, and he said he was really upset that Kamala Harris refused to appear on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, that made a difference this year. And I think this merging of the Trump campaign with tech and these sort of like other like tech oriented niche factions of society, Bitcoin being, one other example, crypto, right? Like he just, courted that support and he got it. And in this case, made friends with a very wealthy guy. And that could very well tell a lot of the story. And ultimately, TikTok is just such an economic engine in this country. You have 170 million Americans have a TikTok account. That's an insane amount. It's insane. It's more than half the people in the fucking country have a TikTok account. Right. And as we'll see in our next segment, in the final days and hours where it looked like a ban was imminent, nobody wanted to be the one taking the blame for it, even though they all wanted credit for it at some point.
Yes. In March, it was all, we have to stop China stealing the data. Once they started to see what the reality was, unless you're going to put a firewall around America similar to what China has around China, unless you're going to do an internet firewall, there's no point in doing something like this.
Right.
Everybody just ran over to Red Note, which terrified them. And you also have to remember, you're talking about throwing millions of people out of a livelihood. Right. Talking about literally millions of people who have made I know one of them. Millions of people have made a business out of this. I know a tour guide who eventually did enough tour videos, got enough of a following on TikTok that she stopped actually guiding. That became her income. There are literally millions of people who make money off that platform, who you're kicking them all out of a job in a world where, decent incomes and decent businesses are not easy to set up and start. It's not easy to start a career. These people went, they did that American thing, right? That you people are supposed to love so much. They went and had that entrepreneurial spirit and took advantage of the opportunities presented to them and built a business, and now you're going to screw all those people?
Right. Yep.
I think Trump understood all that, but he didn't understand that until a guy handed him a check and said, listen, you can't do this.
Yeah, I think that's fair to assume. Sparky, huge political donations are half put in a campaign account and other half in a post-campaign account in case the candidate doesn't play ball. Could be why Adelson only gave $50 million now. Interesting. Thanks, Sparky. Mad Wolf, America just got punked. You mean that after 12 of being banned, suddenly TikTok comes back? Meta stocks go back up. Facebook links that link your TT2FB makes an account on TikTok. Meta and TikTok are now one. Interesting. Ken Texican, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican over here. Hey, over here. Thank you very much, Ken Texican. Biden and Trump both wanting to claim credit for temporary ceasefire. Inclined to believe indie and honest podcasters, journalists did far more by pushing hard. Thanks, DD. Thank you, Ken Texican. Appreciate that very much. All right. Why don't we go on to part two of this? All right, go ahead.
Okay, so the plot thickens. So you start out with Donald Trump in 2020 trying to ban TikTok by executive order. He is stopped by a judge by 2024. There's a bipartisan consensus to follow Trump's old policy. They pass an act to force it to divest or shut down. This is March 2024. By this time, after meeting with Jeff Yass, a big donor who has an enormous investment in ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, Trump suddenly changes his mind and becomes a big advocate for solving the TikTok problem. As if that wasn't bad enough, that the Republicans supporting this bill lost Trump, they all started getting nervous by huge public backlash, including particularly backlash from the young, all going to, if your issue is national security, an even more problematic app that is literally based in China, a true Chinese app that was also making a lot of young Americans cynophiliac, if anything, and seeing a window into the world of China, feeling that actually America is not what they were told it was, and neither is China, and not to America's favor. So this guy really, really has the spirit of China in his heart. This is pretty typical of, I think, what made the politicians start to backpedal. So you can see this labeled, "I'm ready for Red Note."
오만지 선주딩 13상 굿일라이 온샤오지 쪼부야 범유아
It's good. Yeah, it's good. He should have sang at the third-party candidate debate.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty. Yeah. All right, so that might be what made Chucky the Shoom, as our friend Jimmy calls him, make this groveling speech, kind of disowning and backpedaling from a bill that he, along with most of his fellow Democrats, voted for.
Say a few words about protecting TikTok's future while also protecting America's national security at the same time. It's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans, of so many influencers who have built up a good network of followers. That's why last night, Senate Democrats tried to pass a bill that will extend the deadline to give everyone more time to come up with a workable solution. But Senate Republicans blocked our bill, which is stunning because time is running short.
Just have a pause very quickly. It's good to put your hands in your pockets when you're talking about an existential economic issue. Nothing tells the people you give a shit more like just putting your hands in your pockets and reading the script. Yeah,
he's playing a little pocket pool there.
His hands in his pockets. Yeah, talking about an existential issue for millions of Americans.
At his age, the erections are few and far between. He has to get his hands in there while he can.
We will continue to work to find a responsible solution to keeping TikTok going, protect American livelihoods, and protect against Chinese Communist Party surveillance. We must and can do all three. I have made my views clear to the current administration, and I will work with the Trump administration and with both parties to keep TikTok alive while protecting our national security.
You're such a fantastic moron.
All right, so why did you vote to pass this bill? If you felt that this is the way that it should be handled, if you felt there was so much nuance to this situation and you understood that millions of people depended on it for a livelihood, why did you vote for the bill? Now, someone who didn't vote for the bill, we must say, was AOC. Not that we heard anything from her in the past year before the tide turned against it.
Hey, she was working tirelessly to prevent a TikTok ban. this whole year. She was working tirelessly.
Behind the scenes.
Yes.
Behind the scenes. This is Sidney Johnson, who apparently is a little surprising. I mean, nobody cares who AOC's comms director is, apparently, because this didn't get a lot of views. But I guess she felt like this was good for her boss's image. So we're not going to play all four, but we'll play a couple of the most relevant ones. So this is how it starts.
I want to talk a little bit about this TikTok ban, which I voted against, by the way, since this is coming up soon. Last year, when they brought this ban up for a vote, number one, they said it's a national security issue, it's a national security issue. I said, okay, that's serious. Let's see the case. Let's see the intelligence. Let's see what's going on. I can tell you that what was presented to all of the members voting on this thing was not very compelling. Like there was no real information that was given that was a smoking gun, that was anything specific. It was very vague, not convincing, and frankly, it was not convincing to many other members as well.
Okay. All right. And she goes on in the next part, not the part we're going to show, but she goes on to talk about how she had members coming to her saying, this is really strange. There's no real evidence here for what they're claiming. Okay. I think that's all probably true. And it's great that you voted against it. But why did you not release these videos almost a year ago now?
Right.
Why didn't you give a speech like this a year ago? I mean, it's one thing to quietly vote no. It's another thing to draw attention to the problem. It's very easy to draw attention to it now when even Chuck Schumer's going up there backpedaling away from this bill as fast as he can. But
Right.
that's AOC for you. But hey, man, I guess she feels safe now to tell the truth about what happened. So it does give us some insight behind the scenes. And here's where I say, hey, maybe a bipartisan bill between AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene is in the offing. They both go by 3-letter handles,
Right.
AOC, MTG.
Yeah, there you go.
Together for the first time in their very own Broadway musical. What she says here is exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene said almost a year ago when the bill was being debated.
Additionally, the degree to which corporations surveil the American people without genuine consent and without real mechanisms for opting out should be illegal, point blank, period. And so many of us naturally said, the answer is not just playing endless whack-a-mole with apps. The answer is that we should have real privacy legislation in the United States, and we should help people own their information and have greater agency over their personal information so that they're not being spied on all the time, whether it's a domestic company or a foreign company. So we need to actually have privacy laws in the United States, to which, of course, big tech is going to fight against, and their lobbies are going to fight against. So they just target an app instead of targeting the problem.
All right. So AOC with all the face drama. But hey, she's right. And that's basically what Marjorie Taylor Greene said, that we should have a law banning all of the data gathering, not just directed at TikTok. All of it should just be banned. And of course, she's right there. She also points out that some of them are saying, well, they had the opportunity to divest. When you're talking about a company this enormous, giving the company, 280 days, I think they gave them, it's ridiculous to expect a company that size, of that value, to just find a buyer in a few months like that. That's a very big, complicated deal. And she's right, but, she's kind of jumping out in front of the parade, as these courageous politicians tend to do. So Savvy here calls her out on that. AOC says there was no real information given about the TikTok ban. 1, this means Congress voted on a bill they supposedly didn't understand. 2, Here's the public info that was provided. The ADL wanted to shut it down. 3, Biden signed the bill. Yeah, well, she's not releasing that video, Savvy. And she continues, don't forget, in April, Biden signed the law to ban it. Our Congress is not incompetent. They are corrupt. They gave into pressure from the ADL. Corporate media and indie media has been discussing the ban for months. How the hell would they not know about it? Here, Savvy. And here's Blakely, LLC, funny person on TikTok is her main gig, right? Isn't she mainly on TikTok?
I believe so. I mean, I don't spend much time on TikTok, but I believe that is her main.
Yeah, she's
gig,
pretty
yeah.
funny. Oh, look, it's Johnny come lately, now pointing out when it's way too late that she saw no evidence. Why hasn't she been talking about this for months? I'm so tired of these people. Now, this was a response to Savvy. Now, hey, you got a little discussion of this among the left. I hesitate to say indie media, but okay, Riley Gaines. Sad case to me. So here she is pointing this out. This is a big attack from the right. You notice Marjorie Taylor Greene mentioned this when they're making the case about TikTok. They're tying it to this farmland thing. Here's a map showing Chinese-owned farmland conveniently located near 19 U.S. military bases. But yes, please tell me more about how banning TikTok is because we have a government deeply committed to protecting our national security, to which I say,
Donnie, you're out of your element.
Riley, I'm sorry they made you swim against a dude. This shit is beyond you. I get that the libs have probably made it very difficult for you to pursue your original career plan of being a dentist. They're going to shut you out of polite society, so you had to take refuge in the conservative media verse. But come on, man. I mean, yeah, like that's messed up, man. But you're not qualified to speak on issues like this. Nobody cares what you think about this. Try to figure out a way to make a living that doesn't involve embarrassing yourself.
I mean, 2/3 of the country is entirely made up of farmland and military bases. So
How would you avoid
the
them?
reason that you're going to have some Chinese farmland next to military bases.
I had 3 theaters. 2 of them were next to military bases.
Yeah, right. Actually.
So Tim Pool smacks down Riley Gaines here. Okay, China running mass media to 170 million people will shatter the minds of our next generation. Owning farmland is also bad. China doing bad things is the point. We are taking action to stop it. One Fed with a clipboard can seize Chinese-owned farmland. I don't think Tim knows how the government works. You cannot seize back the minds of a generation. This is why TikTok is banned in China, and it's why all our other social media is too. All right, the layers of stupid here are worth commenting on. All right, so 170 million people will shatter the minds of our next generation. Now, I agree that social media addiction is a problem. We did a story about it recently. It literally causes brain damage. Doesn't matter if it's Chinese. Is it better if Mark Zuckerberg is shattering the minds of the next generation? When you look at Reels, when you look at any other social media platform, is it substantively better than what you get on American apps? So what's the difference, really? That is Chinese. And what's really interesting is people like Tim are the first people to really criticize China for lack of freedom. But the solution to what you're suggesting here is to do exactly what China has done, which you would presumably critique, to build an internet firewall around the United States. What else would you do if this is your issue, right? You would have to build a firewall. It might have been Tom Cotton but I don't want to swear to that, was already saying in response to the trend of red note, well, we'll ban that too. Do you see where this goes, Tim? You know, ultimately, once you open this door, as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I'm betting you like, said rightly back in March, hey, you're opening Pandora's box. Because once you do this to TikTok, where does it end? It's whack-a-mole. Exactly as she said. You're going to have to start going after all of these foreign apps. You're going to wind up very much having China's internet policy, and with the same rationale, that you can't trust foreign powers to have that kind of influence via social media on people in your country. That's why they do it, right? So you would agree with their policy then. The idea that a Fed with a clipboard can just seize Chinese-owned farmland, it's that easy. You just go up with a clipboard. How would you justify seizing private property? We allow foreign investment in the country. We allowed them to buy the farmland. Like, how would you take back that farmland? So the layers of stupid here are pretty profound.
Okay, so here's where, I call bullshit on a lot of the conservatives who are either, championing the TikTok ban or saying, hey, if China owns farmland, why aren't we worried about farmland? They all are forced to sort of humor the anti-China hysteria coming from their party. Because if they don't humor that, then they're really defying one of the, I won't say core tenets of MAGA, but obviously the MAGA base really is committed to viewing China as a pretty threatening adversary. And so they are either supportive of the ban, like Ben Shapiro, or they're doing this sort of whataboutism game. Well, if you're really worried about China, we got to look into these Chinese-owned farms that are near our military base, which is just totally psychotic. And
you know what the queers are doing to the soil?
Yeah, exactly right. And then on the Democrat side, you have a little more flexibility in that way. Like AOC is allowed to say, hey, I took seriously the threat of national security, but they showed me no evidence, right? So she has a little more room to operate as opposed to saying it's complete bullshit. There's, of course, no national security threat coming from China on TikTok. I mean, it's just like deranged and psychotic and absurd. Now, the Democrats of the Bush era would be able to say that. That was back when Democrats were able to actually, like, speak out against surveillance and things like that. Not all of them did. Most of them didn't. But you had a handful who would have been in the squad back then if there were such a faction, actually, with the sort of guts to actually just say, this is, of course, nonsense. Nobody's allowed to go that far nowadays, but of course it's fucking nonsense. And to the extent that it's not nonsense, in other words, to the extent that there is some fear that the Chinese are spying on you through TikTok, anybody who's like at all red-pilled about this, anybody who is at all hip to the problems of like surveillance and data collection and monitoring, they fear their own CIA a lot more than they fear the Chinese. Who has a concern about surveillance is more afraid of the Chinese government, is more afraid of the Chinese government than they are of their own. Nobody. Nobody. Exactly. Of course, your own government is more likely to crack the whip on you than the fucking Chinese. It's ludicrous. It's absurd. It's dismissible out of hand. And MAGA can't say that. And the Democrats can't really say it either, because ultimately to say that would be to, undermine faith in the, national security state, which they invested in so heavily to keep Trump out of office. And how'd that work out? But that's a different story. But the fact is, neither party is really in a position to tell the very simple and honest truth here, which is that, of course, this has 1,000 times more to do with the ADL than it does the CCP or CPC, whatever the proper, depending on your personal persuasion. That's obvious.
Yeah, no, they're completely avoiding that. We'll see later with Mike Johnson. He says, anti-Semitism is spreading on TikTok. You know what, man? TikTok, admittedly, I don't spend a huge amount of time there. We know that he's defining pro-Palestine sentiment as anti-Semitism. Yeah, you got legit David Dukey kind of accounts on X with huge followings. Of course. Is he going to say? And hey, man, I don't think those should be taken off X. Is Mike Johnson going to say anything about those accounts? Exactly. Like I see shit like that on the regular on X. Is he going to say anything about that? So clearly, that's not the issue. And hey, again, Marjorie, you want to see what would be a stunning gesture of bipartisanship, given that they seem to have exactly the same perspective on the solution, would be Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC co-sponsoring a bill to ban data collection, which is what they both said the solution should be. No one should be able to collect data in the United States.
Yep. Agreed. Salamander Fry says, hey, you guys are all right. You're all right too, Salamander Fry. Thank you very much. Eric Maines, thanks for the $5. Chappelle's SNL note on a great man versus a president was timely and worth introspection for a country that has given up on having a great man for president. Absolutely, I agree. We're going to do that next. Or not next, but that's the last segment of the night. We have one more. Mordor Socialist Movement, thank you for the $3 and the super sticker. Appreciate that. David Rojas, thanks for the $10. Let's crowdfund a double-decker bus and get you two to give D.C. swamp tours, tour guides covering corruption in D.C. We can get megaphones, tourists, camera crew, the works. I'm serious. All right, well, maybe that'll be next year's Give, Send, Go. Wonder if the agreement specified living hostage. Thanks for John N. Well, the agreement did, yeah, so they are actually returning. It's morbid, but they are returning dead bodies well after the living hostages are released. Peter Monahan, Gator Pete. Hey, Peter, I hope you're well. Hope you're hanging in there. Hey, family, just wanted to check in the hospital right now, getting a tune-up. Had the trach tube removed, getting released this week sometime. Just want to thank you and the DD family for your love. Of course, hearts in the chat for Gator Pete. Absolutely, 100%. Sent you an email. Your opinion would be gratefully appreciated. You think I'm being writers, if you feel it meets the bar, please share it with the family. Okay, I will check it out immediately after the show. Pete, thank you very much for that. Hearts in the chat for Pete. And hang in there, my friend. Bubbles, thanks for the $5. The presidential nuke-proof doomsday plane is supposedly en route to D.C. The conspiratorial part of me thinks this is connected to the New Jersey drones. Ooh, interesting. All right. Eric Husso, poll, who's the biggest scumbag douchebag? Biden, Obama, Blinken, Netanyahu?
I mean, it's got to be Netanyahu.
It's got to be Netanyahu, but I mean, Blinken is a very close second, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell where one begins and one ends, honestly. I like to think Witkoff literally bitch slapped Netanyahu. Thank you, Sparky. Scumbag, douchebag, Mount Rushmore. There you go. Thank you very much. Ken Texican, thank you, Russ, on the Bernie commentary. Agree 100%. Thank you, Ken Texican. Appreciate that very much. All right, part 3 of our TikTok trilogy starts now. Trump saves the day. Again.
All right. So Trump, having become a full TikTok convert, both by donor contribution, by having a large following on the platform, by having done better with the youth vote than any Republican in recent history, partly perhaps on the strength of his TikTok popularity. He went even further. He spoke to Xi Jinping, and truth about it. I just spoke to Chairman Xi Jinping of China. The call was a very good one for both China and the USA. Say, I better brush up on my pronunciation before I go to China. They might arrest me just for that.
Yeah, there you go.
Just for the way I'm pronouncing the chairman's name. It is my expectation that we will solve many problems together and starting immediately. We discussed balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects. President Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. Now, this is the thing with Trump. He does think like a businessman, and one does feel, we always want to be fair on this show. No, we do not have Trump derangement syndrome. We're going to call the good and the bad. One did get the sense in his first term that he was really thwarted by the deep state and the media from following his natural impulses toward deal making.
Right.
That he was forced to be much more belligerent with Russia, clearly, than he wanted to be, because they were setting up these absurd scenarios like Rachel Maddow did before he even went into office in her very infamous editorial about how if Trump pulled back U.S. troops, it would prove he was a Russian agent. I think in a lot of ways he felt in a box. He felt like he couldn't do anything like that. And they were going to say, see, Putin has a P-tape. So, yeah, man, that going to the idea that, hey, Trump's a much better choice than Harris. You got a chance of peace. You had no chance with Harris. That's an example of it. Like, yes, I think he'd rather get along with China than be fighting with China. So hopefully it'll work out that way. He also met with the CEO of TikTok, and he's invited to the inauguration. So maybe he will be there. But so this is January 17th, a couple days before the TikTok ban was supposed to go into effect. Went into effect a day early. We thought it was actually going to happen tonight because that's when it was scheduled for. So this morning, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. So I saw that as soon as I woke up, sent it over to Keaton. We figured that would be the story today. Here's Mike Johnson this morning on Meet the Press sharing his views on a TikTok ban.
Are you concerned by not enforcing this law? The U.S. is sending a message of weakness to China?
No, I think we will enforce the law. And when President Trump issued the Truth Post and said, save TikTok, the way we read that is that he's going to try to force along a true divestiture, changing of the hands, the ownership. It's not the platform that members of Congress are concerned about. It's the Chinese Communist Party and their manipulation of the algorithms. They have been flooding the minds of American children with terrible messages, glorifying violence and anti-Semitism and even suicide and eating disorders. I mean, crazy kind of stuff. And they're mining the data of American citizens. It's very dangerous.
All right, so I hate to tell you this, Mike. It's like that on all social media. TikTok is not being driven by Chinese algorithms to paint Americans in a bad light. It's holding up a mirror to who Americans are. In fact, maybe we'll do this during the week. We'll see how this progresses. The honeymoon with Red Note started to end very quickly when a lot of Chinese people started being like, don't bring that twerking, shaking your ass shit over here. And Americans started to realize that doesn't fly in China. It's not, they didn't create the hellscape that we have. It's a reflection of it.
Yeah, you saw there was a end wokeness tweeted out, one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen. He says, for all the people from TikTok who are coming over here, understand that whatever the Chinese put in your mind about how many genders there are, understand there are only two. It's like, yeah, you really think
the Chinese. The Chinese love that.
Yeah, they love that. They're all about the 50 genders. Yeah,
they're all about it. They're all about. They were actually talking about putting some rainbows up there with the hammer and sickle.
I wanted to add to his tweet. I wanted to say, and TikTokers understand here on X there is only one sexuality. You might call this, there's one sexuality. There's a homo. This is a homosexual space.
There's what you might call a homoerotic undercurrent.
Yeah, this is a homosexual space over here on X. There's one sexuality allowed. Yes.
This is men who like to talk about their muscles a lot.
Yeah.
Dangerous thing. The Chinese Communist Party is not our friend, and we have to make sure this changes hands. I'm really heartened to see that Google and Apple and Microsoft have taken the steps to comply with the law. There needs to be a sale of full divestiture from the Chinese Communist Party, and I think President Trump is the one that can make that deal happen, so we're excited about it.
As you say, he did post just this morning, save TikTok. When I spoke with him in that phone interview on Saturday, He said to me that he is likely going to impose a 90-day extension to give TikTok that extra time to divest from the Chinese-owned company ByteDance. But, Mr. Speaker, they have had months to sell their ownership. Why are they going to do it now if they haven't done it so far? Why should Americans have confidence?
That's the question. We don't have any confidence in ByteDance. They had 270 days to be exact. The law is very precise. And the only way to extend that is if there is an actual deal in the works. Now, Kevin O'Leary, and I think maybe even Elon and others have talked about buying it. I think Kevin O'Leary has an offer on the table. I think President Trump is probably intrigued by all this, and he likes to make deals, as you know. So we're very hopeful that that can happen and that 270 million American people who enjoy the platform can enjoy it, but enjoy it safely and not have their data being mined by our nation's enemy.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
Okay, so Johnson there, this was when Meet the Press is on, so this was around 9:30, put out there that, well, no, Trump is just playing hardball and there's going to be a full divestiture. Well, not so fast, not so fast. Not long after that, Trump released this at 10 a.m. I'm asking companies not to let TikTok stay dark. I will issue an executive order on Monday to extend the period of time before the law's prohibitions take effect so that we can make a deal to protect our national security. The order will also confirm that there will be no liability for any company that helped keep TikTok from going dark before my order. Americans deserve to see our exciting inauguration on Monday, as well as other events and conversations. I would like the United States to have a 50% ownership position in a joint venture. By doing this, we save TikTok, keep it in good hands, and allow it to stay up. Without U.S. approval, there is no TikTok. With our approval, it is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe trillions. A little Trumpian flourish there.
Yeah.
Therefore, my initial thought is a joint venture between the current owners and or new owners, whereby the U.S. gets a 50% ownership in a joint venture set up between the U.S. and whichever purchase we so choose. Now, you know what Trump's not describing there? A full divestiture, which is what the law calls for, and what Mike Johnson said he thinks he's aiming for, but Trump contradicted him almost immediately, and is clear that is 50% ownership is the opposite of full investiture. So, with Trump's assurances that platforms would not be held liable, TikTok was back up within hours.
Big surrender to the communists.
Yeah. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the U.S. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. And then they released a fuller statement. In agreement with our service providers, TikTok is in the process of restoring service. We thank President Trump for providing the necessary clarity and assurance to our service providers that they will face no penalties, providing TikTok to over 170 million Americans and allowing over 7 million small businesses to thrive. It's a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship. We will work with President Trump on a long-term solution that keeps TikTok in the United States. Well, there was at least one person who wanted to assure TikTok that they're going to be held legally liable, and that was Tom Cotton. Any company that hosts, distributes, services, or otherwise facilitates communist-controlled TikTok could face hundreds of billions of dollars in ruinous liability under the law, not just from DOJ, but also under securities law, shareholder lawsuits, and state AGs. Think about it. Now, this is a quote tweet off TikTok's statement that we just read.
I have to just pause here because we have some Arkansas peeps in the audience. This guy is just a flagrantly horrible person. Just I can't think of a more transparently awful, aggressively evil, repulsive person. Who walks into a voting booth and votes for that guy? Who looks at that guy and says, "Oh yeah, I want him representing me"? You have to be a fucking psycho to vote for that guy. How does that guy do it? Like him, Ted Cruz, like some of these people are just like. Dick Cheney was a senator. Like, how do you not look at that person and think this is an evil person? Just like an obviously evil person. I don't understand that.
I think, honestly, they posture in a certain way. Hey, we see it all the time in people that we debate with. There's a certain kind of, very masculine, screw all you people posturing that speaks to a certain personality. It gives them the illusion of empowerment to side with people like that.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
It's the barking chihuahua posing as a big dog, and people feel like they're big dogs if they side with them.
Right.
So here's, closer to home, not to just beat up on Arkansas. Right next door, New Jersey, Frankie Pallone. TikTok's trying to play the victim, but it has nobody to blame but itself. ByteDance has had 270 days to sell TikTok, but they've been fighting it since day one because they refuse to give up communist China's chokehold on Americans' data, which again begs the question, why should anyone have America's data? Do you really feel better that an American company has your data? I don't, as you pointed out. China's all the way over there.
Yeah, what
are they going to do?
Have to come get me? Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. I'm much more concerned about American companies working hand in glove, as we saw in the Twitter files, with American intelligence agencies and intelligence agency cutouts posing as not-for-profits, helping to identify misinformation online, but really working for the CIA. That concerns me a lot more. So, hey, Trump's getting some rebellion in the ranks here. So NBC did a little article on this. So Johnson, his interview, while it was not hostile to Trump, is basically imposing conditions that are very different from what Trump is proposing. Shortly before Johnson's comments, Senators Cotton and Pete Ricketts from Nebraska broke with Trump, celebrating the app's ban that went into effect Sunday. Quote, "We commend Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft for following the law and halting operations with ByteDance and TikTok, and we encourage other companies to do the same. The law, after all, risks ruinous bankruptcy for any company who violates it," Cotton and Ricketts wrote in a statement. Now that the law has taken effect, there's no legal basis for any kind of extension of its effective date. For TikTok to come back online in the future, ByteDance must agree to a sale that satisfies the law's qualified divestiture requirement by severing all ties between TikTok and communist China, they added. According to this, they're right in terms of the law. So the law on the books doesn't grant the president the authority to make a 90-day extension without guarantees that ByteDance is actually seeking to sell the app to a U.S.-based company. Quote, "The president may grant a one-time extension of not more than 90 days if the president certifies to Congress that a path to executing a qualified divestiture has been identified with respect to such application," the law says, adding that there must be, quote, "evidence of significant progress," unquote, or as our outgoing president might say, end of quote, towards a sale, which include, quote, "the relevant binding legal agreements to enable a sale." So TikTok is not out of the woods yet. Apparently, Trump technically does not have the power to do what he's proposing to do. However, very often, as we have seen over the years, the law is what the enforcement mechanisms decide it is. So this is going to be Trump's DOJ. Does Congress do malcontents within Congress? I'm sure it's not even the whole of Congress. It looks like most of them are trying to find an off-ramp from this disastrous bill. Can Tom Cotton and Frank Pallone and Mike Johnson will cave. Can Tom Cotton force an enforcement of a law that technically is being broken if Trump's DOJ refuses to enforce the law? I'm not clear on that, but from what we've seen over the last several years with the total breakdown in our institutions, I think he can probably get away with it just by directing his DOJ not to enforce the law. And he and worst case scenario, he'll twist the arms of people who are not prepared to fight with him, which I think is most of them. Yeah, there's a sale in progress, okay? Yeah, there's a sale in progress, so I have the authority, sure.
I mean, those are some executive branch solutions. Could they not just overturn the law? Could they not just write a new law?
Well, see, that's the next thing. Ultimately, it sounds like to do what he wants to do, they're actually going to have to overturn it.
Right.
Because
so
in the end, you can't do a 50-50 sale. It's against the law.
Hey, Trump wants to save TikTok. Are the Republicans going to vote not to save TikTok? And are the Democrats not going to vote to save TikTok? Because a lot of them are on the record now wanting to save TikTok. What seems to have happened here is I think everybody was counting on the courts to shut this down.
Right.
None of them actually wanted to ban TikTok. They all wanted to virtue signal how afraid they were of the Chinese because really what they were afraid of.
I'm pretty sure Tom Cotton wanted to ban
yeah, I mean, those guys, I mean, a certain cadre of absolute sickos wanted to. But I think most of them thought, okay, we're going to virtue signal that we're afraid of the Chinese when really what we're really doing is making the ADL happy because they don't want the pro-Palestine stuff up there. So we'll make it look like we're doing the best we can for them. And then the courts will swoop in and say, no, you can't do it. And then once they said they were going to allow it to go through, now, oh, shit, we got a big problem. Seems like Trump could just overturn the law now. There's enough Democrats on board, and the Republicans will do more or less what he says.
I'm saying there's going to be an interim period where they have to play make-believe.
Well, yes,
they have to pretend that there's a divestiture happening so they get the 90 days. But in that 90 days, they're going to have to overturn the law. Because there is no mechanism, according to that article, for a 50-50 split.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that they will, because I think most of them have been playing make-believe this whole time. I think most people never wanted to actually ban it. They just didn't want Jonathan Greenblatt on their ass while these damn kids are out in the street doing pro-Palestine TikTok videos. That's what I think it was all about, really. But in anticipation of the TikTok ban being permanent, you know, we never really took seriously building a TikTok audience because we always thought this might happen.
Yep.
But I didn't want to leave our TikTok peeps hanging, so I did record.
So did you see Tara Reid like that video?
She did. I recorded a very heartfelt farewell to our TikTok audience in case we would never see them again. So here it is. Here is my closing message to our TikTok followers.
Goodbye, TikTok.
Here we go. In true TikTok fashion, that was my.
Well, now you have to do a follow-up. You have to do a hello TikTok follow-up.
I figured I would say farewell to TikTok in true TikTok fashion.
Goodbye, TikTok.
There you go. Turns out it was unnecessary. Just in case we had never seen our TikTok people again. I wanted to say goodbye in a language they would all understand.
That was to our Chinese spy.
Yes, exactly. In a language they would all understand on the platform.
They probably got a platoon on us.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure. But TikTok lives to fight on. That's the theme of this evening's show. All right. Before we go on to our final segment, we have some more Rumble Rants and Super Chats to read, but we also got some coffee to move. So let's tell you about Rumble 1775 Coffee. Have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? Let me break it down for you. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. The email explicitly states that the culture of Rumble is too polarizing for them to partner with them. So in other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with Rumble's culture and wants nothing to do with it. So here's a solution. Stop buying products that don't support free speech and start supporting brands that do. And the competing brand we should all get behind happens to be a coffee brand of Rumble's own, Rumble 1775 Coffee. So for a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get 1 bag free. They're 16-ounce bags, so it's a good bang for your buck without the deal. But with the deal, it's a great buy. 2 bags, get 1 free using the promo code Dunkin, D-U-N-K-I-N. So go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Dunkin to get buy 2, get 1 free on their great 1775 coffee. It's a limited time deal, so go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Dunkin. All right, beautiful. Let's see. What else have we got here? We got, all right. Gopnik Otaku, thank you for the £5. A few weeks ago, I dreamt that I was back in school and Kamala and Marjorie were teachers. I told Kamala to fuck off, and I was excited to talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, well, that's interesting. Thank you very much for that. Okay, let's see what happened here. Where is it? Okay. Seb Applejack 59, AMA, why has all the liberals deluded themselves into thinking Biden administration wrote the deal so they got it done, refused to give Orange Man credit? Well, the fact that he wrote the deal is an indictment of his inability to get it done. First of all, he didn't write the deal, but it was the deal that was on the table that Biden, quote unquote, tried to get through 8 months ago and didn't. So the fact that it's Biden's deal is an indictment of Biden, not a reason to credit Biden. It just shows that he didn't have what it took to enforce it, which was not much. Right. Kuznetsky Bassane definitely becoming a Sinophile. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $4.99. Should be illegal to wear your glasses like that. Thank you. This account is pending. TikTok ban is unconstitutional. Bill of Attainder. Thank you very much. Gareth Richmond. Hi, guys. My wife and I love your show and watch every episode. Thank you. It's her birthday today, and I'd appreciate it if you could wish Allie a happy birthday. Cheers. See you tomorrow. Well, happy birthday, Allie.
Happy birthday, Allie.
Hearts in the chat for Allie. Happy birthday. Absolutely. Yes, and please do watch tomorrow. By the way, in case you missed it earlier, Rumble exclusive tomorrow. So you all got to follow our Rumble channel. We are on Rumble exclusively for the inauguration tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. Philip Blair, thanks for the $5. I checked under my bed, found a shirt that says Made in China. Hair on fire screaming, ah, we're all doomed. Thank you, Philip Blair. Kuznetsky, I'm definitely a CIA phobe. Ah, there you go. I like that one. All right, Lovey Dovey, huge donation from Lovey Dovey, $199.99. Wow,
damn, yo.
What a hero Lovey Dovey is. Let's have a cowbell for Lovey Dovey. That's extremely generous. Thank you so much for that. That's very, very kind of you. And it's a simple message of encouragement. Keep up the good work. 3 stars. Well, we appreciate that so much. Thank you very much for that show of support.
Is that 3 of 5?
I don't know. Maybe she got 3 of 5.
I mean, that's very generous for mediocre.
For a mediocre review, exactly. Victor Shakapopoulos. Witkoff to Bibi last Saturday. Now go get your fucking Shabbos goy. There you go. Thank you. Siddhartha Vicious. When are you two going to sub in for David Pakman? Ha. Yeah, good.
No time soon.
Not holding my breath for that. You dirtbag should totally interview Whitney Stryber, George Norrie, and that Greek Ancient Aliens dude. Wait, wrong podcast. Sorry. Okay, thanks, Killer Hitting. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's kind of out of our lane.
Little out of our lane there. John M. in Minnesota. TikTok servers are Oracle servers located in Texas. Red Notes are, on the other hand, located in China.
Yeah,
thank you.
Exactly.
Saw an X post of a Chinese person doing a Trump impression while giving a step-by-step on how to move one's data from TikTok to RedNote. Hilarious. There you go. May Jess, thanks for the $20. It's very kind of you. MTG is our best leftist. She opposed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act and Ukraine funding. She supported Assange and investigation of the FBI. She utilized force to vote and said the CIA killed JFK. Yeah, no, she has her moments, for sure. Yep. Absolutely. AOC was too busy working on the sunscreen question. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. TPS report. MTG is clearly jealous she can't rule with a steady hand as Lauren Boebert with the constituents who rave at her ability to deliver them a happy ending. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. There's a rumor there's a sex tape on the dark web featuring MTG and AOC. Yes, MTG is wearing the strap on. There you go. Thank you.
I would assume she'd be the top. Yeah,
I would assume that as well. I have trouble believing in anything AOC says or supports. Thank you for fact-checking her due dissidence. Thank you, Dr. Durkin. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we got one more segment, and then we are heading over to Rumble for the Q&A. This is a quick one, but a good one. So, Dave Chappelle hosted Saturday Night Live last night, and he always makes news when he does. But his monologue was really excellent. On SNL, Dave Chappelle makes a plea for empathy, whether they're in the Palisades or Palestine. That's right. Now, unfortunately, Saturday Night Live is just insane in their
and that's like NBC
claiming.
in general, right? Because we have
NBC in general, but yeah, especially
Colbert.
SNL.
Is Colbert on there?
Colbert, CBS,
Yeah,
but the major networks tend to be the late night shows, tend to put in copyright
Yeah.
claims that not only prevent us from monetizing the video, but prevent anybody from watching it at all.
Right.
So we are going to play a clip of his monologue toward the end. We're playing the audio version of that only to avoid a copyright issue. And some more passages from his monologue are cited in this article. I'll do my best to read them. We don't want this to be radio hour where we're playing a bunch of audio over and over again. So this will give you an idea of the monologue, and then we'll play some of the key audio, I think, from the end. At the start of Saturday Night Live's first monologue of 2025, host Dave Chappelle described how Lorne Michaels first approached him in October to do the show this season. He wanted Chappelle to weigh in on the state of affairs after the election. Those were salad days when the impossible seemed possible. Chappelle's initial response, nah, man, I'm cool. But then he reasoned he had a bunch of Donald Trump jokes to offload. So what the hell? The moment I said yes, he continued, LA burst into flames. With so much of the city still desperate and reeling and the winds getting ready to pick back up, surely it was too soon for him to tell jokes. And then Chappelle gave us that disobedient wink, the one that so often gets him in trouble. A late bumper in the episode showed Chappelle wearing a somber expression with the word human linked on his forearm. Indeed, he spent his nearly 17-minute monologue not on arch provocation or picking at grievance. Instead, Chappelle took his time crafting an argument for radical empathy, for stars fleeing their million-dollar homes, clutching an, how do you say that? Erewhon bag of overnight clothes, for the Haitians of Springfield, Ohio, for the people of Palestine. What leaps that compassion demands us to take. What a swing, with one hand on the bat and the other pinching his cigarette. The jabs were there too. Jokes about how the news is calling the LA fires the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. People in L.A. have nice stuff. I could burn 40,000 acres in Mississippi for like $600 or $700. Yes, that was a good line. Yes, and that tackles the hidden class, not so hidden, but something that people haven't talked about, which is the class element regarding the fires. He talked about his loyalty to the Haitian folk living one town over from his home in Dayton. Yes, Chappelle lives not too far from Springfield. As Trump demonized those hardworking legal immigrants this fall, accusing them of dining out on suburban pets, Chappelle says he patronized a Springfield Haitian restaurant to show support. I don't know what that meat was, but whatever it was, it fell right off the bone. Chappelle touched on Diddy and his hurt feelings over realizing why he'd never been invited to a freak-off party. Oh my gosh, I'm ugly. Moreover, if you really study my face, clearly I have snitch energy. Then Chappelle hoisted himself off his stool, his voice turning lyrical. This Diddy nonsense, what does it matter when Monday looms and half of us will spend the day with fingers in our ears turned away from the screen while diehard MAGA warrior standouts, okay, blah, 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 it's some Vanity Fair, lib bullshit, whatever. On the day that Trump becomes the 47th president of the United States, the flags will be or should be at half-mast for Jimmy Carter. And here was the surprise hero of Chappelle's monologue. So here Chappelle sort of eulogizes Jimmy Carter by way of, expressing some great empathy and humanity for Palestine. And here's where our audio will kick in.
I was in the Middle East years ago. After I quit my show, I was trying to find out what I wanted to do with my life. And while I was there, Jimmy Carter flew to Israel. So everybody in the region was talking about a former American president being in the Middle East. And while he was in Israel, a book of his was released, and its title was very controversial in Israel. And the title of the book was Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. And people were very mad in Israel. There was a lot of mean stories that came out in the paper, but some people were supportive. And while he was there, Jimmy Carter said, I want to go to the Palestinian territory. And the Israeli government said it's too dangerous. And if you go, we cannot protect you. And man, Jimmy Carter went anyway. I will never forget the images of a former American president walking with little to no security while thousands of Palestinians were cheering him on. And when I saw that picture, it brought tears to my eyes. I said, I don't know if that's a good president, but that right there, I am sure, is a great man. It made me feel very proud. The presidency is no place for petty people. So Donald Trump, I know you watch the show. Man, remember, whether people voted for you or not, they're all counting on you. Whether they like you or not, they're all counting on you. The whole world is counting on you. And I mean this when I say this. Good luck. Please do better next time. Please, all of us, do better next time. Do not forget your humanity, and please have empathy for displaced people, whether they're in the Palisades or Palestine. Thank you very much, and good night.
Well done. Well done. It's great monologue. The monologue itself is great. A lot of really funny jokes, and, you know, as Chappelle can so well do, you know, it becomes a sort of as much a spoken word theater piece as a comedy set, you know, toward the end. You know, he's really, really good at that in the way that Carlin was really, really good at that, where Carlin can do, you know, really, really hilarious comedy and then just really shift into another mode where he would go on these 10-minute monologues that are not designed for laughs, that are more philosophical and more serious. And Chappelle's great at that too. You know, he and Carlin are really kind of in a league of their own in that sense. That's why he's one of the greats. And so, yeah, it was a great monologue, great story about Carter. And just obviously, you know, some of the most explicit pro-Palestine content you'll see on these shows, full of people who are just afraid to go there. And that's why it's fortunate that you have an uncancelable person like Dave Chappelle willing to go there. You know, it's a lot more useful. It's a lot more useful. As much as, like, I didn't think that The Closer was a transphobic show. I thought he front loaded it with a lot of the edgier stuff that would get a lot of people to turn it off before he gets into the really good stuff about his trans friend who was a comic and stuff. So I think that was probably an error in formatting if I were to nitpick. But I didn't think it was like a bigoted show. But I think, you know, this is a much better use of that because this is the shit you really can't say. And most people will just simply will not say it. Even Whitney Cummings, when she went to troll CNN, she's like, in advance, she told the people, all right, I'm not touching Israel-Palestine. I'm not touching that because that's actually dangerous. I'm going to go and do a sort of semi-dangerous troll job. But good for him for being willing to go there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a teachable moment. We probably don't have a lot of them who watch our show, but for all the hall monitor minds who thought that Dave Chappelle should be deplatformed because they didn't like his view on gender issues, I've made it clear where I stand on that. Whatever. Even if you feel that way about it, this is why you do not deplatform a great artist like Dave Chappelle. Because you know what? Even if you don't agree with his perspective on that, at the time that he was speaking on that, that was extremely dangerous to do. It was not clear at that time. Chappelle had been gone for a long time. You know, he popped up here and there. But he really started to reestablish himself in the public conversation with those Netflix specials. That was really, there was this long gap after he left the Chappelle show where he, you know, here and there, but he didn't really do consistent work for decades. It wasn't clear that he was uncancelable. It wasn't clear. He could have lost his career for saying that shit. It's exactly that kind of person who would be speaking out now about Palestine. That's why you disagree. You want to disagree with him, that's fair. But you don't cancel him. You don't remove him from the public stage. He is what you call an important artist. Not like all the artists who bent the knee, who wouldn't take a position on that. And let me tell you a secret. Most of them thought the things that Dave Chappelle was saying. Most people thought the things that Dave Chappelle was saying, but at that now a lot of people are saying it because it's safe. At that time, it took someone like Dave Chappelle to come out and say, yo, man, yeah, it's a legitimate human experience, but there are issues and layers and levels to this that need to be examined. And again, you could disagree with what perspective he had there, but this really demonstrates why you don't cancel people. We need people like Dave Chappelle, whether you agree with them or not. We don't need another 1,000 cookie cutter comedians who are going to be careful, like Whitney Cummings, not to talk about Palestine because they're afraid to lose their career.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good for him. Good for him for using that platform in that way. It's better that he waited, turns out, rather than just do a post-election show, a pre-inauguration show, getting to eulogize Carter in that way. I thought it was a really, really great way to tie it in. Yep. And so, yeah, very, very well done. All right. John M. in Minnesota. I seem to recall that just a few months ago, AOC and several other Dems were making statements that suggested they consider the First Amendment inconvenient. Thank you, John M., of course. Sparky63. Tim Pool hasn't been independent for a long time. He was blowing Ben Shapiro for a couple of years before it was made public. Daily Wire's bought Tim out. That's why Tim's pro-genocide. Miserable libs. Screw TikTok. Give me back Pornhub that these assholes Abbott and Paxton got to pull out. No pun intended. Oh, there you go. Did they ban that in certain states? I don't know.
Did they ban Pornhub?
I don't know. Sparky. 85% of TikTok's users are outside the U.S., so the U.S. doesn't really have much leverage over them. Rather than selling it to an American, TikTok will just tell Mike Johnson to eat a dick. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much. Casey McCoy, if Biden wants praise for his legacy, he should go to hell and find his mother. There you go. Sparky, Biden administration only come up with the ceasefire deal to trick Angola, part of the UN Security Council, to back off of Israel. Biden administration planned for it to fall through. Thank you. Trump is thinking like a diplomat, says Teresa Sanders. Thinking like a businessman is what got us into this mess. POTUS has prosecutorial discretion, says Posmo, over all law enforcement and who has standing to sue Trump for enforcing it. No one. Ada AR says, thank you. Appreciate that, Ada, for thank you. Eric Maines, Keaton, just remember as you scold your kids someday for mocking teachers in dumb voices, they will pull your goodbye TikTok video as defense. Karma, thank you. Ken Texican, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican, please. Thank you, Ken Texican. Appreciate that very much. Jeffrey Klosny, thanks for the $1. How could you douchebags vote for Jill Stein and not Dave Chappelle? Well, we did that in solidarity, my friend. Oops.
Yeah. You ever think about that, Keaton? Because you do this, that like there's going to be a thorough record of your opinion on current events that like all of your descendants will always be able to look at?
I mean, no. I mean, I never thought I had that specific concern. No.
I mean, it's not a concern. It's just like, yo, man, theoretically, you could have like a descendant in 500 years who gets curious about their like great squared grandfather. Like, oh, look at this, man. This is what this guy thought about that President Trump.
That's true.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
I heard
way
of him.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There will be a record of it. Sparky, Carter had a lot of personal courage. When he was in the Navy, he was lowered into the core of a Canadian nuclear reactor by a rope around his waist, wrench in hand, to stop a meltdown. Wow. Thank you for that, Sparky. Appreciate it. All right, folks, that's our show. We want to thank you guys very much for being here. The party continues over on Rumble for the Q&A. You can go to dudissidents.com/Rumble. Please come over for the Q&A tonight. Even if you don't stick around for the whole thing, come over and follow us on Rumble because that's where we're going to be exclusively tomorrow at 11 a.m. At 11 a.m. For those who don't get Rumble, who you can't watch it, we will be streaming it to X as well, but exclusively for the chat, and all that shit, will be over on Rumble. That is where the chat and the action will be. So go to dudissidents.com/Rumble to head over there. Right now, that takes you to this live stream. The Q&A will start after a 5-minute intermission, a David Lynch-themed intermission. this evening in honor of the man who passed away this week.
Yes, I was a big fan. I made that with love.
All right. So, yes, please come over and hit that follow button over on Rumble. Hit that subscribe button over here on YouTube. I want to thank you guys all for being here. We want to thank Jake in the booth. A big shout out to Jake. Round of applause for Jake in the chat, please. And we will see you all in 5 minutes over on Rumble for the Q&A. If not, then we'll see you tomorrow, Rumble exclusive, 11 a.m. for the inauguration, and then back on all channels and all platforms Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Right now, a 5-minute break before we see you after the intermission for the Q&A after party. Please come join us. Until whenever we see you again, thanks for tonight. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.